Hey guys, welcome back to the Tribal Lines podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Lupo, back with my co-host, Pat Johnson.
How we doing?
And we are joined by two guest hosts with us today. Both played in the LRG that Pat and I played in a couple weeks ago. And we're so happy to have them on. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Jay West, if you want to go first.
All right. What's up, everybody? Jordan West, mostly known as Jay West. I'm messy. I'm chaotic, but I'm down to earth. I played with them in the LRG. I went out before all three of these guys, but I got all of them in the back of my hand. I got them all figured out.
Hey, we all made the jury, so we can at least
Yeah, we
be
all
like,
made jury.
woo.
We all huge Survivor fans.
That's right.
Govind, Menon, 5'8", out of Carnegie Mellon University. Happy to be here.
Awesome, love it.
I didn't expect anything less from Govind. You should just see the parchment on his final vote.
I'll be as extra as possible. I feel that's true to form.
Oh, it's amazing. That's why we love you, Govind.
Appreciate it. Wish it went both ways. No, kidding. Go for it.
Oh man,
Jay West, I love the fit.
Charlie Sheen, I'm on an island. I had to fit in, island
right.
tribe.
Love it.
You burger or dog kind of guy. Let's go around the room. Burger or dog?
I go first. You go first.
Yeah, I'll beat you to the punch. Go ahead.
I go West for last normally. Say the West for the best for last. But anyway, I go Glizzy. Glizzy the dogs.
Jay West loves his Glizzies.
Yeah, I'm Glizzy gang as well. I feel Jay West on that one. Oh
Glizzy.
yeah.
2 votes, Glizzy.
I'm a burger person for sure. I love burgers.
Oh, we going to Rocks.
We're going to Rocks at the 2-2
Oh yeah, Glizzy's got to go. If I had my choosing, I'm definitely keeping the burger.
Pitch on the Glizzies. You can rip it in half and put it on a burger, so you can eat it.
I mean, yeah, you
could.
Yeah, but then you're making it sound like it's a condiment to the burger. The Glizzy is the experience. We don't want to overhype the burger.
Yeah. I'm just trying to sway them to come to us. I'm not flipping, bro.
Okay, good. I had your back, man. You can't be flipping on me like this shit.
No, for sure.
Well, I got to steal a vote, so I'm stealing Govind's vote.
That's how it
been there, done
goes.
that, my guy. Been there, done that.
Yeah, that was tragic. We don't have to relive that right now, but that was a sad day for all of us in that moment.
Yes, definitely. All right, so that was some fun Glizzy burger talk, but let's get back to Survivor. All right.
Jam. Congratulations, Jam. You were the winner of Survivor 44. We're happy. We're happy to see it. I mean, I can speak for myself. Can I speak for everyone else and say that we're happy for Jam?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
Happy for Jam.
What a season. What a ride. I love this season. I think it's the top of the new era.
I do too.
Tippy top.
Yeah, I really like the season. We got a winner that I think everyone going into the finale was 100% going to be happy with. I know a lot of people want Carolyn more, but I mean, Jam was a very deserving winner. All the other winners are obviously deserving as well, but I feel like there was a lot more controversy with the last 3 winners than there was with this season's winner. So I'm happy we got a winner. We can all agree deserved to win the season.
Oh yeah,
by the way, I agree with that.
Yeah, Jay West, what do you think about Jam?
I love Jam's game. He was a social player. He used that all the way to the end. So I'm a fan of Jam. I'm happy that he won. I'm glad that 2 of the tickets that went. I mean, no spoilers, but yeah, I'm happy for Jam.
Yeah. Govind, what about you?
No, I'm thrilled. I was very much in the minority there at my watch party. I was watching with a bunch of people who were full on convinced that Carolyn had this game locked up going into the finals, I guess, given the edit. And then seeing Jam come up, I was hyped because I just think the way in which he plays this game is so genuine, and it's refreshing that he's able to balance that with also just very keen strategy and strategic acumen. So I'm all for the Jam.
Yeah, and let me just say, I agree with everything you just said. Like me and my girlfriend both like called him as a winner pick, like from the preview, because when he was like, "I'm gonna poop in the ocean," I was like, "This dude is winning." Like that is the last part of the confession. I mean, like that confession was the last part of the preview, and I was like, "This dude's got it in the bag. Like this dude is probably all three. Like he's definitely social. He can definitely outlast these people. He's definitely strategic." I saw it from a mile away, and then I had my doubts as the season was going, but by the time it got to like, the final eight, final set, I was like, all right, this dude's got the narrative. He's got the story. He'd be a great winner. I really do hope he pulls through. And it was really cool to see.
Exactly. After seeing the preview, I knew that Jam Jam was going to do well. I didn't know if he was going to win or not, but I knew he would do well. I knew he was going to be a fan favorite, if not the biggest fan favorite going into the season. And so I was really happy to see him do so well and make it to the end, especially, and Carolyn too, being such a fan favorite going into the season as well. Both of them making it to the end definitely made for a great season.
Absolutely.
Carson too, making Final Four. Like I think those three, that Tika three was probably the three people that were looked at the most in the preseason, and they were all in the same tribe. They all aligned with each other. It was perfect.
Yeah, talk about a power tribe like from first looks that ended up like not being per se what you'd call a power tribe. I mean, they lost Bruce immediately. They
Right.
go to tribal, twice pre-merge. They lose two there. And then those three had to navigate the middle, right? And they did a great job in doing so. And it's just like the three biggest characters on the same tribe. It was just so cool to see. I loved it. The Tika 3 will forever have a place in my heart.
Oh yeah, for sure. And especially because in that first vote for Tika, it seemed like Carson was going to go with Sarah and Helen.
Mhm.
And I was honestly rooting for exactly what happened because I wanted those three were my favorite three, and I didn't see them in the first like episode or two working together. And then when they voted together and were solidified as a three, I knew good things were about to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into all things Survivor 44 finale. We're going to talk about the finale, break it down, our thoughts, what do we think of it all? We obviously are happy with the winner, right? But there's a lot of ways that this could have happened, the way that this could have shooken out. So we're going to get all things that. So Steven, get us going. Come on.
Okay. All right. So we come back from tribal, and what happened in the final six tribal was Jamie went home. It was 4 votes for Jamie, 2 votes for Carolyn. And then we come back and they are riding up to the new beach that they are starting over at, but not really because they were smart enough to predict that was going to happen and bring all of their supplies. But they wouldn't have a shelter. And then the first thing we hear is Carolyn Screech coming onto the new beach. And then when we get back onto the new beach, we have Heidi. Everyone's asking about Heidi's idol, where she found it. She was like, "Oh, I found it by a tree near the bird cage." And she later says in the episode that she doesn't regret playing the idol at the final 6. She wanted to make sure she made the final 5, and that she would just try to find another idol, try to use her social relationships, get to the next stage. And yeah, so that's what Heidi started talking about with the idol.
Right. And I thought that was very interesting too, because when we get back from that, from that vote and we have what we see is the final 5, it's like me and Steven talked about it before. It's like Jamie doesn't always go in that spot at 6, right? And it just showed like how powerful like that Tika 3 is. And I kind of want to hear from Jay West. Like, did you see like when the merge started, did you see like Tika 3 being able to stick together like the glue that they were? Like, did you see that happening?
Kind of. I mean, with Jam Jam's social awareness, and to be honest, it was all Carson's doing that kept that team together. Because if he didn't merge off to go to Orange, he would have never been able to be like, "Look, I'm playing both sides. Basically, I'm
Mhm.
playing both sides, and you guys, you can be yourself, and you're always going to be a shield for me." And for Carson's standpoint, basically. But it helped
Yeah.
in his favor because the later it got in the game, he felt comfortable with his numbers, his beginning numbers, and he was like, "Look, we can dictate every vote from here on out." And I played a game with you guys going into jury with only two of my original tribes, and we kind of maneuvered all the way through jury, so I don't know. I feel like it worked out in Carson's scenario besides the way it happened, but yeah, I seen it happening the way it did because like Danny was gunning for uh Brandon and Brandon was gunning for Danny, and that was the two vocal points of both of their tribes, and Carson just played the middle, giving them
Yeah.
information and giving his tribe information.
Yeah, ultimately, I think that is what sets Carson up to do so well, like he did. You know what I mean? Just being able to keep these three people together. I mean, I think they all had a hand in where they landed, right? And it's just I don't know. It's just crazy to me that they were able to stick together through the whole thing. I saw it coming in a way, but at the same time, I was like, they got to turn eventually. We're gonna definitely talk about potential turning and potential flipping as well. So, yeah, Steven, where are we at?
Okay, so at night, Jam, Carolyn, and Carson go over to the water well and they discuss how Heidi just played an idol. There's got to be another idol out there, and they want to start looking. Jam and Carolyn want to start looking then. Carson's like, I'd be more effective in the morning. I don't want to look right now. As they're talking at the water well, Jam is digging for an idol. Carolyn's like, oh, there's no way you're gonna find an idol digging just by the water well. And then Jam picks something up and says, oh, I got the idol. And then starts running away. And then they're like, oh no, let me see. And then it's just a stick, just a piece of wood. And that was a very funny moment.
Yeah, that had me dead too because I was just like, this is why Jam's still here though. He's just so likable.
Yeah.
Like likability kept this guy around, and not only was he likable, hella strategic. Like so strategic, like super likable, and like stuff like that goes a long way, especially in this new era, right? Like he's a big character who was able to manage that threat level, and I just think that scene just shows his personality and who Jam really is. We'll also talk about a scene later that really shows who Jam is as well. But yeah, so let's pick it up from the idol hunt here.
Yeah, so they go into the morning and now everyone's looking for the idol. Everyone's scouring every part of the beach. They don't really know the beach because it's a new beach. So they're trying to figure out where would be a good place to hide the idol. We see that there's a tree right by the water that has the idol hidden in one of the branches, and everyone's looking around that tree, but nobody can find the idol. And I always think it's funny whenever seasons have that where it shows the idol is like right next to where everyone has been looking like all day long. Like it's right there, like look up.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. I think they did that in 43, right? Where
Yep.
I forget like what episode that was off the top of my head.
It was
But
the
that was like
advantage with that Cody got, which was
okay.
the final 7. You got to bet on one other person to win the immunity challenge, and like it was on literally just on a tree, and everyone just kept walking past the tree.
Yeah, no, I love that scene because it just shows like how big and how real it like really is, because on TV, like we're sitting at home and we're like, it's right there, like it's right there. But obviously, like it's meant to show us that, yeah, it is right there, but like this is big, this is hard, like this is a lot. Like it's not as easy as it looks. And I don't know, those scenes are really just like lighthearted and fun and really love them.
I think though, like from watching the players' pods and everything like that, we know that the island is small, and we know that like it's harder to find like a needle in a haystack. But some of those players had their minds set. Like you heard in the episode that Lauren said, I'm planning on winning the next immunity, and so did Carson. And then Carolyn was even like, "Look, let's look for the idol now, basically." And some players don't really give a hell about looking for an idol because they feel like, look, that's too much flashy, or it's gonna put a target right on my back. So I felt like it was if people, because Carolyn said she found hers in like 7 minutes on her tribe, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So then Lauren and Carson were talking, and they were saying how like I've heard your name, you probably heard my name, we're both big threats. And that's pretty much where we're left at, that it's a good chance that it's going to be one of them or both of them on the chopping block coming to the final 5 vote. And then we get to the immunity challenge, and we see that it's a puzzle, and right away I was like, oh, Carson's winning immunity. Like
Oh yeah.
he's a beast at puzzles. I was like, oh, this is meant for Carson.
Yeah,
And yeah, good.
I saw that challenge and I was like, so if it's not Carson, then who is it, right? And I was like, if Lauren wins this challenge, this can get really interesting, right? Ultimately, the challenge plays out. Carson is a boss, stacking from the out, or putting together the puzzle from the outside in. It's very risky because you can lose everything just off one touch.
Right. I got really scared watching that. I thought it for sure it was gonna be like come crumbling down. Like that's always scary. Whenever I watch, I think in season 42, I think Mike Turner did the same thing in one of his challenges where he did the outer ring, and I thought it was about to fall. But yeah, but then Carson was able to make it work and didn't let any of the pieces fall, which was huge.
Yeah, it's just like anxiety ridden.
I've one thought on that, which is like I think every podcast out there covering Survivor right now is beaten to death the idea of like, is it fair to repeat puzzles? So that's not where I'm going with this. More so my question is in the fact that like when I was watching that challenge, I was like, if Carson makes it through the physical parts of this challenge anywhere close to anyone else, then he's probably going to win it because he's going to blow everybody out at the puzzle. So should like Survivor invest more in like harder physical components? So then somebody like I guess maybe if like Danny was still here at that point, or like a Lauren or someone like that who's like much better physically than Carson might be, has a much bigger head start on Carson on the puzzle. Because right now it seems like whoever just wins the puzzle is going to win because the physical component isn't too bad. What are people thinking there?
That's a great question. I'll start this one off. I think for me, they definitely got to change it up, right? I think even with the puzzles and even with the physicality of the challenges, and I think to your point, it's like, yeah, like Carson has a bigger advantage with the puzzles, and it's like maybe physically he can still hang because they're not as physical as maybe we're used to maybe seeing in the past, or they've just stayed the same and they've been consistent. I think it just needs a whole, if we're gonna keep three tribes, if we're gonna keep similar formats, if we're gonna keep a lot of things the same, you gotta shake it up and spice it up and where it can get exciting because sometimes I get bored by the challenges. Sometimes I'm like, I wish I could fast forward and just see who wins. Like this is kind of just whatever. I've seen this 40 times. Right. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. What about you, Steven?
Yeah, I know that the reason that they do the beginning part of the challenge instead of just doing the puzzle is so that some people can have a slightly head start on the puzzle, and sometimes a lot of puzzles can be very close, so having that head start might give you the extra edge to beat someone who, if you guys started at the same time, you probably wouldn't have beat. But I do think it should be a big enough head start where it actually matters. Like it seems like a lot of the times in these challenges where they do physical component and then the puzzle, you get maybe a 30-second minute head start max, and it's like it seems like they are just doing the physical component just to like make it a little more interesting on TV. But I do agree with Govind. I feel like at least maybe not all of them, but like a couple of the puzzle challenges that have stuff in beforehand, it should be difficult enough where there's like multiple minute head starts on the puzzle, and just make the puzzle like a really difficult puzzle or something like that, where the head start actually really can help you perform better on the puzzle, like a Danny like doing better than a Carson or something like that.
Yeah,
Do you think
I
that's
think there's go for it.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that like I think there's a middle ground between I guess since the challenge is now part of the general CBS like franchise, like the challenge does it in I think like the opposite format where like if you're not physically fit, the puzzle's not gonna help you whatsoever, right? Like the puzzle's kind of a gimme, and like the key thing here is like whether or not you can physically hang. Whereas now Survivor, I think it's one the other way where it's like everyone's physical enough. We see everyday people being able to complete the physical portions of these challenges. Now the puzzle, if you haven't studied it, you're not going to beat somebody who has studied it. I think there's that middle ground to find somewhere there. How that actually is, I have no idea. I'm not a puzzle challenge producer, but I love critiquing things without knowing what the right answer is myself, so I'll keep doing that.
I think what I was going to say, I think it's more so about the cast. I mean, I hear you, Govind, of like switching up, and Pat, I hear y'all about switching up, but it's about like, for me, it's a lot of players want to play Survivor from what they know. Like Carson, he came in studying these challenges. So why did the cast let a puzzle threat like that make it to the end? Because he's likable, and and yeah, it would have been an even race if Danny was in his place. You know, everyone would have been scrambling. But we seen a season like that, like a Ben season. It was a bunch of people who couldn't do anything at the end, and it was still like entertaining to watch. So, I mean, I would love for a change up, a twist, so the players don't come in with like a plan in hand. But you got to get the like the physical threats and then like the mental threats out, and that's their fault.
No, I think
That's
that's a
really
great
fair.
point, JOS too, because it's like
Sway.
ultimately ultimately this like it's just gonna be like what it is, right? It's like whatever they decide to do, it is gonna be who are the players and what decisions are they making and based off what, right? So to your point, like Carson didn't really hide that. Like, I mean, he hit a lot of things, but like, everyone knew that he was a challenge guy. Like when it came to puzzles, like everybody
Like he
knew
was
that he
always
was
he was always in that hero spot. He was always in that hero spot, and it was like,
right. So it's like,
well,
let that guy get to the, close to the end. It's like, does that fall back on the players? Does that fall back on something else challenge related? Right. It's like, who's responsible for what?
Yeah,
And
I feel like
it's definitely a fun question to kind of just bounce around though, for sure.
yeah, I feel like just when Carson had done, I think like maybe two puzzles really quick, and everyone like saw that he was good at puzzles. Um, that was I think around the time where like he was really sick from the reward and throwing up a lot, and wasn't really himself. So I feel like
uh,
people weren't really looking at him as a challenge beast. And then
mhm.
when it got to the point where he was like much better and everything,
Mhm.
Tika was like one vote away from having the majority. And then at that point, they were more focused on like keeping their numbers together. So like, I guess it all depends on the season. Like, do you go after these people who can keep winning immunities and get to the end that way, or do you keep them around because you know that they're going to be a number for you? So it's you got to balance both of them, and then it's all about which is more important to you at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
Guess
So,
our relationships play a big point. I mean, my
mhm.
fault to cut you off. That's why Jam Jam was flawless.
Well, yeah, and that's what I've seen like a pattern. In the new era, especially, it's like a pattern. Like relationships are going to take you very far, right? And we see, relationships get cut off all the time, but like really, really deep, deep bonded people that have a lot of people that they got really close to usually do really well. So Carson wins immunity. He gets a reward as well. Steven, let us know what this reward was.
Yep. So we get to go to the sanctuary where good things happen.
Good things happen.
And this is what the third time, or maybe the fourth, but I think the third time that they're doing the sanctuary in the same season. Like, can you please switch it up? Like,
I mean, it's I don't know how many times now because it's all blended as one.
yeah.
Like,
I miss when they would go on like helicopter rides around the island, or like visit like a tribe of the island or something, and like get a show performed or something like that. I feel like that made at least the rewards interesting to watch, other than showing like a 3 minute clip of them on the reward, them like loving the food, talking strategy for like 1 or 2 minutes, and then that's all we see from the reward.
yeah, I when we get to rewards, it's like I feel like that's basically like what you're gonna see. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, they're gonna eat, they're gonna laugh, they're gonna talk strategy, they're gonna laugh again, they're gonna
Do they
talk
plant anything
strategy.
at the rewards anymore? I haven't seen that at
I
the.
know they don't, but they should. They should plan some advantages in the rewards. I remember that was also a very exciting thing. Like even early on in the game, like maybe like a tribe award if you get fishing gear or something like that. Like hide it in
The water. They're like, who went the last bit of this? He's like,
yeah, like
yeah,
hide
this,
it in the bait, or like if you get like the sometimes there's like a straw cookies that you get, like hide it in there because it'll look like a straw, like something like that. Make so that it's more exciting to watch the rewards, like, oh, who's going to find the advantage, stuff like that. Put it in the napkin. I remember there was one where it was like, I think in Survivor 35, there was a spaghetti plate, and like underneath the spaghetti plate was a clue to a hidden immunity idol. I thought that, so, and that made it really fun to watch a reward where it was only just people eating spaghetti, like, and because they couldn't even talk with each other because it was one at a time. So that made it at least more interesting to watch.
Absolutely.
I think Australian survivors lean into that a lot, which in my mind results in some really cool television, but also has now resulted in like the meta for reward challenges in Australian Survivor being like at the end of the reward challenge, everybody who's there just destroys the entire place. And there's like food thrown everywhere. It just becomes this like obscene like reality show, which is in my mind fun as fuck at times.
Yeah.
And also like seems like you always know what you're getting at the end of it. So once again, I don't want to be a broken record, but I don't know what the middle ground is. I think doing it every so often keeps people on their toes instead of like always expecting a reward to have like an immunity idol clue.
Yeah, like 1 or 2 a season, like not every reward, but like 1 or 2 times, like make it a little interesting, make it unpredictable.
Yeah, just throw it in. Just sprinkle a little,
yeah, a little sprinkle.
Just a little bit. Like we're not asking for much. Like you don't mind throwing a twist in our face every now and then, but like give us what we want there, give us what we want there.
And so then they have at the reward, they have spaghetti with meat sauce, they have chocolate cake, they have carrot cake. And also when they were talking about what the reward was, it seemed like more of the cast wanted carrot cake over chocolate cake. I was like, what are you talking about?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know about that one either.
Yeah. And then so at the reward, we didn't get too much into what was going on, but we pretty much saw Jam Jam pitch to Carson to get rid of Carolyn, and then Carson immediately shut it down and was just like, yeah, no, Carolyn is not as big of a threat as you think. I think Lauren's a bigger threat. We need to get Lauren out. And so Jam Jam wanted Carolyn, but he was like, if I'm not going to have the numbers, then might as well go with Carson because he's not budging. So they discuss going after Lauren. And then we go back to camp and we see that who is left? Carolyn, Heidi, and Lauren. The only other person who could get voted out that's not in that group is Jam Jam. So they talk about Jam Jam, but Lauren tells Carolyn that on the last vote, Jam Jam had thrown out Carolyn's name and was trying to push Carolyn to Lauren, who obviously was not on the right side of the vote. But for Carolyn to even hear Jam Jam throwing out her name definitely made her start thinking, oh, maybe I should be getting rid of Jam Jam. So yeah.
Even as much as, she says it publicly. She's like, Tika needs some jury, like, the jury needs to see some Tika or something like that.
When they get back to camp, and they're all sitting down, the Three Stooges and someone else, maybe Heidi.
There's Heidi, yeah.
Yeah. Carolyn's like, we need some Tika on the jury. and she was like, it probably is gonna happen. And then Jam Jam's like, just like shocked, like, why are you saying this? Are you actually consider voting me out?
Right. And then that pans to, the conversation that we end up seeing between Carson and Jam Jam. And Jam Jam actually shows some like real concern here. He's actually getting paranoid, and Carson is seeing that he's also getting paranoid because they're like, the fact that no one's talking to us and the way that people are looking at us and really coming at us is like a way that makes me feel like we don't know what's going on. And I thought that was really interesting at that time because I feel like if you're Lauren, like, I would not be solid on Carolyn Flip. Like, I don't know, just from what I've seen, like, I would be talking. That's all I'm saying. I would be talking. I don't know what I'd be saying, but I would be talking to someone. And I feel like it was just, one of those things.
I don't. My fault to cut you off. I
go.
don't know. I think Lauren had a great chance, but she clearly, like from watching it, she clearly gave up. I mean, I don't know I don't want to speak for her, but it looked like she gave up, right? And I think she had a great chance because Carolyn was with her. She could have used the 3 girls. She could have used that pitch, right? She could have been like, look, there's 3 girls, 3 different tribes. That shit works. If she don't use that, she can go bold at live tribal council. She can say what she said to her in front of Jam Jam, publicly in front of the jury, make him actually think now, And Jam Jam already had those concerns before, so he might actually throw a vote. So, Carson is going to vote for Lauren because he said it. He said, I'm voting for Lauren. I'm immune. I don't give a fuck what happens. So, sorry. But, yeah, so he votes for Lauren. And Heidi, I don't know why she's been on that bandwagon, but maybe she would have got swayed. At Live Tribal Council, it would have been 3 girls on Jam Jam. And, then Carson would have definitely had to win 4. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it was a drop opportunity. And I feel like not speaking helped her advantage too, because somebody did still throw a vote. I don't talk too much, but somebody still threw a vote on Heidi. And I felt like, because she wasn't speaking so much, it's like knowledge is power. Like you said, you don't know what was being said when you're not around. And if you can't trust your ally who's busting balls at the end of the game, it's like, yo, maybe they're right. Maybe they are going
Yeah.
to team up on me, so
Yeah. No,
everybody in the game.
that's a great point, Jay West. So when we get back, we are going to dive into this tribal council. We're going to talk about the final five. We're going to talk about eventually what goes down. And we are going to recap the rest of this Survivor 44 finale for you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back shortly. We want to thank everybody who's been tuning into the Tribal Alliance podcast. We're doing a lot of cool stuff soon. So make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, all that cool stuff so you can stick around and see what's good. If you're a Survivor fan who has wondered how well you might do on the show, our buddy Steven, yes, Steven from the podcast, Steven is hosting his own Survivor game on Zoom Saturday, July 1st at 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You play in online immunity challenges, you form relationships, strategize in breakout rooms, you vote people off until you crown a sole survivor. If you're interested in playing this, hit him up, Steven Lupo9 on Instagram, StevenLupo9 on Instagram. Let them know you want to play, and maybe you will be the next sole survivor.
All right, guys, we are back. And so we were just talking about what was going on before the final five vote. And I remember Jay West had mentioned how Jam Jam and Carson were talking and realizing that Lauren wasn't really talking with them. And they were nervous that if Lauren did have an idol, that Lauren would be writing down Jam Jam's name. So they came up with a plan where Jam Jam would go to Lauren and try to get Lauren to vote with him to take out Carolyn, which Jam Jam wouldn't actually have been doing, but just to get so that if she played an idol, Carolyn would be the one going home and not him. It's Jam Jam wasn't really that confident that Lauren actually bought what he was saying. He was kind of nervous. And then it shows Lauren realizing that, it probably is going to be me. Like, I need to look for this idol. And it shows Lauren on the idol hunt. Lauren was right before it goes to final tribal council, shows Lauren right by that tree and looking up at the tree. So it seems like Lauren just found an idol, but it doesn't show it. So we go into tribal not knowing if Lauren has an idol or not. And so then we go into tribal. The jury sees that Carson won immunity, and they're like, "We knew it. We knew it. Like we guessed it." So that definitely was something good for Carson's resume, showing that he won immunity. And then we talk to Lauren, and Lauren says that she thinks she's the one going home. Nobody was talking to her all day. And then Carolyn and Heidi honestly get pretty upset about that and was like, "What are you talking about? Like we've talked. Like I thought we had a plan going." And Lauren's like, "No, like it was just ideas thrown out. We never had a set plan." And Carolyn was kind of getting annoyed, but obviously she was just playing it up because she knew she was about to vote out Lauren anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much what was going down. And then Lauren starts crying and talking about how she's proud of her game. She hopes that her kids are proud of her and that it made her a better person and she grew and everything. And going back to what Carolyn was saying at the final seven, is this my goodbye speech? I saw that and I was like, oh, this is Lauren's goodbye speech. Like, she doesn't have an idol. She's definitely going home. Like, why would she have, if she had an idol, why would she be bawling out crying like at this tribal council?
It would have been very, very, very good though. Like that would have been
really
very
good.
That would have been very good convincing.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we go into the vote and yeah, I mean, Lauren, she's been so vocal about her story, and I think she does have a beautiful story, which is clearly why she was targeted as a threat. Highlighted as a bigger threat than we probably saw at home, right?
Exactly.
But she ultimately gets voted out here. And what does that do for us? Who wants to pick this up? Like we got the Tika 3 and Heidi. So where are we at?
So first off, when Jeff is about to read the votes, like, does anybody have an idol? Lauren says, "Oh, Jeff," and then says, "No, I'm just joking." So I thought that was pretty funny.
It didn't get
I
me
feel like
though. It
that's
didn't.
something
It didn't get me like all like, oh, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I don't know about y'all.
After the goodbye speech, I was like, she's definitely faking this, right? Like, she's no way she has an idol. Uh, but then yeah, the vote ends up being 3-1 to 1. The vote on Heidi was never really discussed during like pre-tribal council. But we find out that Jam Jam is the one who put the vote on Heidi, and I thought that was incredibly smart of him, because if Lauren had played an idol, Jam Jam would have went home if he had voted Lauren. So he made it so that if Lauren played an idol, it would have been Jam Jam and Heidi having a revote. And if that was the case, Tika 3 would vote together and vote out Heidi because they didn't want to see Jam Jam go. So he had no way. It seemed like he had no way of going home, even if Lauren played the idol, which was a very smart decision on his part.
But that's
Yeah.
why I always feel like that. My fault. That's why I always feel like tribal councils should stay live. Like the whispering and everything is cool, but that was actually the last live tribal or whatever that you can sway anybody or vote out anybody, right? So be vocal, be bold in front of the jury. That is your time. And when even Carolyn and Heidi felt the type of way, and Lauren didn't even make a reaction to the jury, that's still her like power right there. You know, you can continue to speak and be bold, like fall on your sword. But that was her good mind message, like you guys said.
Yeah, I was honestly kind of shocked at the way Lauren handled that tribal council. Lauren used that platform as a way to share her story and say how proud she was. When I think you can do that in your confessional after you get voted out. Like, you should be trying hard 100%. It seemed like she was sitting around a lot, not really looking for the idol as long as she probably should have been. Once she found out, when she really thought she had no way of staying, she should have been looking for an idol frantically from the beginning to the end of the day. And at tribal, she should have pulled out, like, she should have been like, I have an idol. She should have faked it. She should have been like, I have an idol, so if you guys want to protect yourselves, you should vote for someone else. Or should have like pretty much talked about how Jam Jam is a huge threat. Jam Jam's gonna win the jury. He's lovable. Like, you need to get him out before you get me out. He's the bigger threat. Like, something. You should. It looked like she just rolled up and died and like
Yeah,
gave
she
up.
checked out. Yeah, she kind
Yeah.
of gave up.
I
I
don't know
think
if it
that this
worked.
is a bunch of survivor orgers trying to force somebody a square peg into a round hole. Like I don't think that's who Lauren is, right? Like
No facts.
I think we're asking it maybe if like one of us were in that position, that's what we do. But I think it's much more true to who she is to just genuinely take uh take it as it comes on the chin and
The
just be like,
hollow,
this
yeah.
was the end of my experience. I want to be so thankful for the experience. And I think that's why she's the really warm-hearted, genuine character that she is, right? From like a pure optimal game strategy, I fully agree with y'all. But I don't see any world in which she actually does that. Maybe the Tika 3 are the ones in this spot where if they're in that position, they do that quote unquote optimal play. Um, but I actually really like, from just like a pure viewer standpoint, the way she went out. I thought it was really touching, and I really enjoyed her story.
Yeah, honestly, if you have no way of really staying, like, that is a great way to go out, because you get like time to you have a platform to speak. You get to like show how much it's changed you, like show how proud you are, like, and just enjoy the moment while you still can. So and honestly, like, the stuff that I'm saying that she should have done, I don't know if it would have really worked, because Tika was so tight. Like, they probably would have just been like, well, we had a plan going in, let's stick to the plan regardless. Um, but I would have liked to see at least her put in a little fight, even if she knew 100% she was not going home, you know. But I understand, yeah, like, I'm if she had no way of staying, like, at least she got a chance to like speak about her experience and like go out on a good note.
Well, I think it's quite possible that her fight was cut out of the edit, like a lot of her gameplay. Because if you look at Lauren, we all love her for what reason? It's probably not her gameplay, it's who she is as a human being and what she embodies, right? She was truly an inspirational player. Her exit was beautiful. And I think if you think of Lauren, when you think of Survivor 44, you think about that story and her two boys and being a single mom. And I think that that's everything that they wanted to show us about her. And I just wish we could have seen more of her gameplay because she was viewed as such a threat, right? Because it's so crazy to me that these three Tikas felt like they, I mean, at least Carson felt like those three could stay together and they would have the best shot versus each other. Where from an outside looking in, I'm like, that scares the hell out of me. Like this is like a 3-3-2. Like I don't, this is rolling a die, right? Because I would think sitting next to, like, if I'm Carson, I want to sit next to Heidi and Lauren if that's my final five. I mean, but who knows, right? I mean, we don't for sure. But I just thought that I thought that was a great way for her to go out if she had to go out at that spot.
Yeah, like Lauren through the edit, it didn't seem like very much of a threat, but the way Carson talked about in his confessional how Lauren was playing a great social game, had relationships, close relationships with so many people, and that's probably why she was the last one on Ratu remaining, because she had such great social relationships. She also had all of Ratu on the jury, so Carson was like, if she can at least show that she played a decent game, Ratu is going to put all the votes on her. So she probably was a bigger threat than we probably saw in the edit, and that could also be why she ended up getting voted out and why the Tika three wanted to stick together, other than Jam Jam. But yeah, that's
which is a big departure from at least the way I remember seasons, like any season in the new era for that matter, right? You think of Ricard, Lindsay, Carla, like the people who've been in that spot in the first few seasons. They're all edited to be like these strategic masterminds. Like that is the fifth place archetype at this point. Yeah. And I feel like they very much could have put Lauren in that same mold if they wanted to. Why they chose not to, maybe that's because we have a final three that is much more, or a final four that has much bigger characters than the previous seasons. And because of that, they want to give the finale spotlight to them. I'm just conjecturing, but like, it's interesting that she's not that same, like, the same spotlighted figure that the other three are.
Yeah, I think it's because of the street three stooges, the Tika three. Just like the previous seasons, there hasn't been like a set like 3-person alliance that's just dominating the game. And it's mainly been a lot of voting blocks. After like a few votes, it's starting to get to voting blocks, like who is a threat that we can get out now, and like figuring out what the right timing is. Like for Tika, it's the story of them has pretty much been like to stick together as long as we possibly can, so that we all have a good chance of making it to the end. So I feel like that's probably why this season didn't have like a big strategic arc for the final five, because the other seasons didn't have a strong alliance force in the season, and so they focused, I guess, more on that than the final five. But yeah, I feel like final fives are usually, people who go out in the final five are usually like these strategic thinkers and are edited that way too.
So let's talk about our final four. We have a final four of Carson, Carolyn, Jan Jam, and Heidi. So we get to the final four and we see who's left standing. And there's 3 of these Tikas. And, you know, we saw it coming, right? Some will say they didn't. Some will say they did. Jay West, I want to hear from you. 3 out of 4, you know, in the final four. Like, what do you think about that?
Obviously you want your own tribe to win, right? You want Tika to win. That's the best case scenario, and the worst case scenario happened. But I like their chances, you know, because I feel like Heidi, she lost her opportunity when Lauren left the door. You know, that was a chance for her to finally like be strategic herself. She's a numbers person. She was like, that was more of a her move, saving Lauren that time. I feel like she would have got more credibility because Lauren was so forgiving to give up, right? And if Heidi would have been smart about it, she would have seen how she was the fourth option every time, or the third option every time. You know, I don't know right now, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. I like her odds. I mean, I like Tika's odds because they had the majority to win.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And then we see that our final four, Samotion's back, baby. Govind, are we sick of Samotion? Do you love Samotion? I want to hear your opinion on this challenge.
I am a survivor, I forget what the word I'm looking for. Curmudgeon, truest. I don't know what I'm looking for, but like I want to see Ian and Tom's holding onto a pole for like day and night.
That's what
That's what I want.
yes.
I'm not here for like a hand-eye coordination challenge. Maybe that's just because when I project myself onto the screen, I'm like, I would fucking suck at that.
You're
So I'd
right.
rather just have like a willpower, like who wants to be there most. But yeah, I'm of the mindset that like for such an important challenge, it should just be pure willpower. And I think Samotion is something where it's very skillful, and I think it's something that works amazing for Made the Final Five challenge. But for like who wants it most, which is what I think Final Immunity should be, and I think that's what Australian Survivor has always kept it being, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a little bit over Samotion in the US.
Hey, I think that's a great point because I love what you said about like Tom and Ian on the polls and everything like that because Jeff's talking about this like beautiful view in Fiji and it's the best view and it's the best and he saved it for last for Samotion. Why not put them on polls and let us just look at the beauty and let us just watch them suffer and fight to the end until they drop. And I don't know. I'm sick of Samotion. I love it as a
But then it,
challenge. Change it up.
but
Put it
then that
somewhere
goes
else,
back.
like Govind said.
But then that goes back to the equality, like y'all was saying in the beginning of the pod, right? Like, what if Jam Jam was in that situation? He's holding on heavier weight. He's at a disadvantage. I like that challenge more so because it's not a puzzle. It's not. It's not like it is handball coordination, but you can break it down with math too. Like you can say like, oh, it takes 12 seconds for this ball to get down. So the next time I drop it, I'm gonna drop it at 6, and then I'm gonna do 3, and then 3. Carson's a numbers dude. So was Heidi. It was really up for grabs. You just got to be able to get your hand over. And
I fully disagree, Jay West. Like
that's
like
all love
I
talking.
agree with your like thing about like why Samotion is a cool challenge visually and stuff. And I'm not saying do away with Samotion, I'm saying put it elsewhere in the season. I think
Yeah, I
there's
agree.
so many ways to make the final immunity challenge still equitable. Like you just have if you're having them hold stuff, like hold some percentage of their body weight or may that be their current body weight, their starting body weight, something of that sort, right? So that in theory, everyone's still holding a amount of weight that's proportional to how much they can actually hold. So in my mind, that makes it a much more level playing field. And it's like, how badly do you want it? Just comes down to like, are we just sadists for wanting that? Like, are we just assholes, or like, does the average viewer want that as well? Because I think we are a very small group when compared to everybody who's watching Survivor, right?
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from with the fact that having a challenge at the very end where it's all about willpower and who wants it more. I think that was a lot of fun and really showed who really wanted it. Ended up usually winning that final immunity. I do really like Samotion in the new era though, just because, well, one, it's such a classic challenge, and it's something that, like Jay West said, it's an even playing field. It's all about like focus and hand-eye coordination and timing and everything. So really anybody could win. So I feel like a lot of the times where it's willpower, it seems to be like a strong male ends up winning, and it's harder for like these weaker challenge people to win. And we see the last 2 times, even though Heidi is like an athletic person, I feel like in a competition like that, Heidi might not win, but Heidi, because she hadn't won any immunity except for this one, and now she finally won her first immunity on something that everyone could have won. Same with I think, what was it, 2 seasons ago, season 42, Romeo won. Romeo was not winning anything, and then ended up winning the final immunity challenge. Another reason why I feel like having a willpower one is probably not the best for the new era is it seems like final immunity doesn't really matter that much anymore, because you could win, you could be a good fire maker and you're gonna probably end up making it to the end anyway. It meant a lot more when you knew you were the biggest threat, and if you lost, you were for sure going home. Now you at least have a chance to make it to the end. So more so, seems like the final immunity challenge is really the fire making challenge, not exactly the final four challenge. So that, I mean, that's kind of why I like Samotion, makes it even. And if it's a willpower one and you don't win, you at least have a chance to make it regardless if you're a threat. I also love slow motion because I actually I bought a mini version of it on Etsy, and I practice it at home, and it's honestly so much fun.
I want to try that one. That's like one of few challenges that I was like, I would love to just give this a shot. It's not my favorite to watch. It's not my favorite like as a final immunity challenge, but at the same time, I'm like, this would be pretty fun to try. I can see myself like sitting there for like 2 hours until I can like get it, like until I just get the hang of it.
Mm-hmm. And there was a exit interview that I watched part of from Carson, and apparently he said that he did practice it at home, but not like the actual motion, just like practice like timing balls into a tube, and like just so that once it happens on the show, if they get there, then they can like understand the timing and everything. But it turns out that he said in the moment, one side went around quicker than the other side, so it was harder to time it exactly right because one of them would be moving quicker than the other, which I thought was interesting. I always thought that it was going to be the exact same amount of time on each side, so that adds another level of complexity to it.
Right on. So we see that Carolyn is the first to drop, then Jan Jan drops, and then Heidi eventually wins final immunity. And we know that, well, as far as we know, Tika 3 is not sitting together at the end until Heidi makes a quick remark that makes that actually a possibility. Jay West, I see you smirking. What do you think about that remark that she made?
I mean, she was shooting at the stars. I feel like, like she ran out of power moves and she had to say something, right? And we seen it happen before in the past. Someone risked their last community and they win the game. And I feel like it would have been great in theory and you doing it in front of the jury, but now she said it, and it's like, don't say it,
Oh, so
that was
you would more so like want her, want
I
her
would
to
rather her
have the
not.
Tika believe that she's, sitting at the end and two of them are making fire.
If I was Heidi, right, and I won my first immunity, I would just cheer, happy as fuck. And I made it to final. And now I'm sizing up everybody at the island, right? I'm sizing up everyone from Tika and seeing if they can do it. And now it's up to me. Now you can say everything you want to say at the tribal, but now they got so much time to help each other out. They already know that it's us against Heidi. One of us got to win. We're going to cheer for each other. It's us Tika 3. So it's like she shouldn't have said anything. And that was just my take on it.
Govind, what's your take on there? And then
My
Steven.
take on it is that I think I don't get the fire hype in the grand scheme of things. Like
I'm
Yeah,
with
I
you.
same. I agree.
like fire is cool and all, but like the idea that like, oh, if I beat some other person in fire, now I am the shit is like I think it's a little overblown. When I look back at like the Chris Underwood of it all, right, who really started this whole movement, I think the reason that was so dope was because, well, first, it hadn't been done before. And then second was the fact that he took out Devins. Like, this was the guy who was like the big threat on the block. But like Heidi coming in and then like just taking out Carson when there's still two very other really good people who could still beat you, who are already guaranteed spots at the end. That's not nearly as impressive to me. Like, props to you on making fire super quick. Like, I can't do that. That's very impressive. Now, does that make me want to vote for you? I don't necessarily think so, and I think that's reflected in the jury votes
I
as well.
agree.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
think I feel like the Final Four fire is there in place not to give you a humongous boost on your resume. It's so that the biggest threat in the game has at least a chance of making it to the final
Yeah.
three. When if that person had lost immunity, it would be a 3-1 vote. They get voted out. So I like it in the fact that it gives the biggest threat a chance to make it to the end by their own means. But if you beat someone in fire, it shouldn't matter that much on your resume. Like, it matters how you maneuvered through the game to get to that point where you could win fire to make it to the final three. So yeah, it definitely is a resume boost, but should not be taken as seriously as like strategic moves or like a big idol play or something like that. It's just there to help the biggest threat have a chance at making it to the end.
Oh
To
yeah,
go back,
absolutely.
my fault. To go back to the Chris move when he did it, I think it's always about jury connections too, Govind. That's the third one that you was missing. Like he was out second or fourth or whatever the fuck,
He was
and
like
he was
fourth or
with the
something.
Exactly. And that was the season that everyone makes jury. So he stayed the whole time, helped them get fish. He connected with everyone. And they like Chris now. They're everyone can win from jury. We're all the jury's gonna pick it. And we all know how it is when people got their mindset and they don't even want to be open-minded to the jury questions. So it's like uh you got to read your cast basically. Like I always try to break up the dynamics fast just so it can be an even playing field. That's how I play. But uh, I feel like Heidi just was just excited. That was her first win. I don't want to take that from her, but I
Yeah.
just think that she shouldn't have said it because I mean maybe putting the two people against each other, what would that have done, right? Like I don't know. She still won. So
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter that much that she said it at the end of the Final Four immunity challenge because the jury's not there to see that. Like,
yeah,
it
I agree.
it doesn't really matter if the Tika members know that Heidi is possibly going to make fire. Like, Carson's still the biggest threat. Jam Jam's still a big threat. Carolyn's still a big threat. So, like, they just want to protect themselves. They shouldn't be like, oh, I want to make sure Tika makes it to the end. Well, you'd be going up against some big threats. Like like for example, if Carson was to beat Heidi, like that would honestly be bad for a lot of the Tika members, I feel like, because Carson was the biggest threat, which leads me into talking about Jam Jam going up to Carson, knowing that Carson's bad at fire, and helping teach him what the best and easiest way is to make fire. When there's a good chance that if Heidi doesn't go to fire, then Jam Jam is going to be taking on Carson in fire. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on, do you think that was smart of Jam Jam to help out Carson? Do you think it was not? What do you guys think?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it just shows Jam and just who he is as a person. I think that's who he was out there, just authentically and unapologetically himself. And I think that's what he would do in the real world. Someone needs a hand, someone needs, help with something, Jam's gonna do it. And he says that, and I think that's reflective of why a lot of people wanted to give him votes at the end, because he was a good guy. And that's that. What about you, Jay West, Govind?
Well, I thought I don't know. I know the time thing, but I think see, I'm very paranoid when it comes to game, and I think that everything was game related. Like, yeah, he loved Carson. Carson helped him out, and I feel like when a jury asks Yam at the end, like, when was the time that you used, like, say, like you said, say Carson beats Heidi, right? And that was the time. Like, I used Carson because I fucking helped him. Yeah, he helped me eat, but I helped them beat fire. So now, you know, I mean, that really doesn't help him. But at the end of the day, like, Jam Jam is a nice dude, but everything you do, you have to remember just so you can pitch at the end. And I feel like out there, nothing's genuine. Like, you can be like, "Hey, bro, let me get some water. I'm thirsty." Like, sure. And I'm like, "Yo, remember that time I gave you water?" I'm like, "What? You remember that? Are you serious?" But it's like that's just the time. Like, they sacrifice. Everyone's sacrificing. Everyone's playing the game, even playing for real. So Jam Jam is a good guy. I don't want to take nothing from Jam. I just feel like it was game related.
Interesting perspective, Jay West. A little different from mine. When we get back, we're gonna take a little break real quick. We're gonna hear from Govind, and we are gonna get into final tribal council. Does Heidi give up that necklace? Who's sitting there at the end? What are our thoughts on the final three? And we will get all into it. Thank you for sticking with us. We'll be back with you shortly. Hello, me again. Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but we had to inform you of some things. Tribal_lines_pod on Instagram and tribal_lines_pod at gmail.com is where you can contact us. What do you want us to talk about? What can we cover? Who do you want us to bring on the podcast? We want to hear from you guys. We want this to be open to the community. So please reach out to us. We do want to hear from you. But let's get back to the good stuff. Let's get back to the pod.
All right, guys, we are back, and we were just talking about our thoughts on Jam Jam helping out Carson make fire. So, Govind, I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as doom and gloom as my boy Jay West over there. I generally think that he's a nice guy. I do think that there is part of this though that, say, let's take like a guy who's teaching someone how to like how to bike for the first time, right? Like if you're teaching someone how to bike for the first time, then you're racing against them later that same day. Like yes, they'll now be able to bike, but they won't be able to keep pace with you. So I think that out of the goodness of his heart, he doesn't want Carson making a fool of himself on national TV. And I think he also just wants to help out a friend, right? But I think he also knows in the back of his head, to a certain extent, like even if I'm helping out Carson, Carson's not beating me if I'm having to go against Carson. So like it's no risk to me either.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I think that he was doing it out of the kind of his heart, but I think if Carson would have beaten him, obviously that would have been a very dumb move. But thinking about it, Jam Jam was really good at fire. So was Carolyn. So was Heidi. Carson was not. So the short amount of time that Jam Jam was giving him a few pointers wouldn't have been the difference of probably winning, unless like Jam Jam just completely, if he was going up against Carson or Heidi was going up against Carson and like completely shit the bed, then that would have been unfortunate and Carson would have made it to the end. But yeah, it seemed like Carson was at a point where even with a little bit of help, Jam Jam still would have beaten him. Heidi still would have beaten him. Carolyn probably still would have beaten him. So I understand why he did what he did, and I think it was. I know he was doing it out of the kind of his heart, but he was probably also thinking a little bit of strategy too. But in the back of his mind, like if Carson's about to get voted out, is about to lose fire, and is going to be on the jury, like, hey, I helped you when nobody else would. And honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why Jam Jam got Carson's vote. I mean, also because Jam Jam
solidified it.
But yeah, I think it definitely helped solidify it. But yeah, that's what I think about that. And so then we get to tribal and we hear Heidi's decision. Heidi first puts Carolyn into the final three and then puts Carson into fire. And we find out that Heidi will take off the necklace and take on Carson in fire. So we have Jam Jam and Carolyn officially in the final three. Then we have them take on each other in fire, Heidi versus Carson, and Heidi beats Carson, making the fastest fire in a fire making challenge in Survivor history with 3 minutes and 2 seconds. So I want to give props to Heidi on that. That's very impressive. And I honestly feel bad for Carson because Carson was not as bad of a fire maker as Lily says we saw than we thought going into it. He had half of his fire already good to go. Like he was halfway to the rope by the time Heidi finished, and Heidi was the fastest fire in Survivor history against majority of other people that just in Survivor in general. If he would have had to go up against someone else, he probably would have won that. Like he was honestly like a minute away probably from winning that challenge. And that would have still been considered one of the fastest fires in Survivor history. So it's unfortunate for Carson. He was so close, but congrats on Heidi for winning. And yeah, there's nothing you can do for Carson. And he talks about how he has a lot of self-confidence now and that he gained that from the game and that he's really proud of his game. And he honestly should be. He played an outstanding game. If he would have made it to the end, I'm very confident that he would have gotten the jury votes to win.
I agree. I think, Heidi making that move too. And I kind of want to just talk about, just to kind of finish with the Jam Jam thing and with helping Carson. I think Jam's thinking is also like, either Heidi makes the fire versus Carson, which is the biggest threat, which puts me in the final three, right? Or, if Heidi wants to save that immunity, I think Jam thinks that, out of the three that she brings Jam because of that connection that they had and because of that relationship that they did have. And I think that made him also just more inclined to be like, I think I'm going to the final three. Govind says, I don't want him to look foolish on national television. I think that has a lot to do with it. I want you to at least have a shot here because I think I'm going regardless, right? And even if I am making fire, I know I can still beat you. And I think that that's just a great way of how it turned out where Heidi ends up taking it, and she does take out Carson. And now we have a final three with two Tikas, Jam Jam, Carolyn, and Heidi, with a jury of 8 to make a decision. And going into this, I had no idea if it was going to be Jam or Carolyn. I had an idea that it would not be Heidi. That was just my perspective of just the way that the season had played out. But I definitely expected things to be a little bit different than how they turned out. So let's start to talk about that a little bit.
I actually have some questions for you guys about just the last day and everything that's going on in between the day 25 tribal and the day 26 final tribal council. So in the new era, they started doing this. They didn't do this prior. They would have now the jury members talk to the audience about what they think on the final three. And I wanted to get your opinions on, do you guys like that? Do you like that change now in the new era? Do you want it to go back to where you just saw what happened at Final Tribal and you didn't know what the jury was thinking going in? What do you guys think?
I have some thoughts there. First and foremost, I don't fully agree with the assertion that it's new in the new era. Like if I remember watching back prior seasons, like all of that stuff is on YouTube. It's just a question of whether or not it's included in the episode.
Right, yeah. So like being included in the episode.
Yeah, I fucking love it. Like I think it's like really interesting knowing how these people, well, first reintroducing them to our screen, because like honestly, the episode's like 3 hours long, right? And the entire focal point is like three people. Like it's really just like the Tika people that we're like focusing on for a 3 hour time. I can't focus on like such a small number of people for that long. And being reintroduced to these like familiar faces, these fun characters was like cool on my part. Like hearing what's called, and then one of them even got like the episode title. I think it was Matt who ended up getting the episode title, talking about how it was like a banger of a season. I think it's cool. I'm all for like changes to like the way in which they do the editing. Like still my favorite moment in I think U.S. Survivor history was like back in San Juan del Sur, where they like misdirect you on, I think it was the Josh vote or something of that sort. You don't know who has what advantages, and this is yet another innovation as far as the editing is concerned. I think it makes me even more engaged.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I love this addition to the new era. It's whenever I was watching tribal councils in the past, final tribal councils, I would always not really know what the jury is thinking, and we wouldn't know until we get those questions from the jury, and you can tell by their tone or by the questions they ask what they might be thinking. But this doesn't even show you who they're planning on voting for. They're saying like these people played, they're pretty much showing us their perception of these players before going into final tribal council. They're talking about like what moves they know that they made, how they maneuvered through the game in their eyes, and pretty much saying like, I want this person to talk about this at final tribal and they'll get my vote, stuff like that. So we know exactly what the jury's thinking, and I really love this edition. What do you think, Jay West?
No, I agree with y'all. No sway here. No pushback. I love it as well. More so because like what Govind said, it gives a new look. Like we're basically focused on these three players, and now that the jury comes back, we get to remember how they all view the game, view the players, and it helps us, kind of figure out who's going to vote where. But yeah, I enjoy it. I love the new addition. I think it started 42 though, because I think that's one of my favorite seasons. Because 41, it was they had the still Ponderosa with what's the name arguing with the dude, I forget his
Shannon
name.
Ricard.
Yeah, Shannon Ricard. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
arguing it. I don't think that was the last one.
No, I mean for me, I think it's not only, entertaining and informative, but it's also essential because we're missing some. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm missing when the juror comes up, asks a question, or says a statement, or anything like that. And at least we're getting to see like their perspective of the three and like what it's going to take in order to earn their vote. And I think if we're not going to allow the jurors to just step up and ask a question or read a state or say a statement, at least give us some of their perspective. And I think this is definitely a good thing. I think it shows us a lot. I think it's entertaining, and I think that it's fun. And I think I agree with all of you guys as well.
Yeah, and that's another question I wanted to ask you guys. Just what do you guys think about the fact that now, ever since I believe season 34, they do the outwit, outplay, outlast, discuss that. They don't give anybody opening and closing statements. We don't get to have those moments of one person standing up in front, super bitter, and like asking individual questions that they're curious about rather than what the group is curious about. What do you guys think about that? I don't like I don't like it. I wish they go back to the way it was and give at least a chance, at least one or the other opening or closing statement. Let them be able to just explain their game without having to only answer questions. And it gets a lot of great moments when it's just one person up there asking questions to each of the jury members.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, I think 44 and the final tribal council like just proved, the point of why we want it back. It's like I barely remember even hearing from like Lauren, Jamie, or Brandon during final tribal council. Like,
yeah.
When you have each juror step up, you're hearing from everybody and you're hearing specifically what it's going to take in order to earn that vote. Are you going to, own your game? Are you going to apologize? How are you going to, read that specific juror? Because that is still, you're still in the game. You're still part of the game. Because when we have these open forums, it allows for just a lot of discussion that you might get away with some more things, or we might not see as much. And I think that we see a lot more ultimately of why someone wins the game when we do have those individual speeches. And I certainly do miss them. And they're
I
entertaining
agree,
as shit.
but I agree, but I also want to make note of the fact that like final council is like 3 hours long. I would be very surprised if Jamie never once talked during that entire 3 hours, and I'm sure
Well,
that
I'm saying as a viewer of like, I want to see like what I want to see.
I got you. I got
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you for
And I
sure.
want to see that too. I think it's much more engaging, and it's like you get those iconic questions where people stand up and then like roast people, or even have them pick a number or something like that. That sticks in my mind a lot more than this general like consensus discussion and things of that nature. But I'm not as hard pressed on like opening statements, closing statements, things of that nature, as long as they have 3 hours to discuss their game. If it's like truly what we see and it's like a condensed format and they get none of that, then I say fuck that. Like let the people explain their game. But I think 3 hours is more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
But from
I
a viewing
think
standpoint, I see you.
At least having I just want closing statements at least, because like if let's say there's a question early on like that
you
goes
can
something.
answer those at the end.
Yeah, like if there's anyone you want to apologize to at the end, is if there's anyone that like asked a question and then you were the first to answer, and then one of the other final three people answer and completely discredit what you said, and now you don't get a chance to bring it up. Like at least it gives you a chance to, if you are having a tough final tribal council, you can kind of bring your game together in a few words and hope then maybe sway a jury member who was with you originally, and then after hearing some things is now voting for someone else. It might sway them back to you. Opening statements less so because you have jury questions. But
I think what helps is that last person you send a jury, right? The last person you send a jury is going to advocate for their ally. And I think Carson was the best to go to jury. He got Jam. Obviously, we thought, like, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I thought that a few people were going to vote for Carolyn. But if Carson, someone who can articulate the game strategically, just like the jury sees it, you see him, he's in jury like, oh, you're saying it perfectly, like you're saying the right things, and that helps. And you finally swaying them, because like you said, it was a time that the jury they don't see those times that Heidi say, oh, I might take them, and then the jury like, oh, that's a big move, and then the Carson's in jury like, she told us, we wasn't even surprised, and they're like, oh, why the hell, now they thinking, you know what I'm saying? So it's all about that. And it's what I would rather have an open ending questions if that was like my choice, because it can be some like those people that go to jury bitter, right? They might have their idea on who they want to ask everyone questions to, and just give that person a shit question, and he don't even get the right questions asked to him, and then he don't even get to present his game, and it does suck. You get 3 hours of dumb questions when you just played the best game, but you was playing a bloody game, a cutthroat game, and you just want to present that, but you don't get that opportunity to. So
right,
I wish they had that closing.
I also like how you brought up Carson. I thought it was hilarious that throughout the tribal council he was coaching Carolyn, and like whenever she was saying something correct, he was like, yes, 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 perfect, perfect. Like, yes, good, good, good. That was awesome. It's like a complete reversal from the first 25 days. Carolyn was Carson's mom throughout the whole game, and now it seemed like Carson was acting as the parent to Carolyn, which so it was really cool. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. I love that too because I think it just shows like their relationship, right? Like and it's kind of weird because like we'll talk about it obviously, but like he's coaching and he's coaching, he's coaching, and who does he end up voting for? Right.
I
So
feel like he was trying to shut her up. He was like, "Yo, you're saying you're saying the perfect things. Like, just stop. You know, like you might sway the jury. You know, like that could be a way. Like, because Carson, he loved Jam. He even pulled him at 5 to go with him to the where everything good happens, where it's the place. So
sanctuary.
yeah, sanctuary. He took Jam there. So it's a clear indication. And then Jam helped them learn fire. So we knew that vote was going there. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, like everyone was looking at Carolyn as this chaotic player, and now at the jury, I mean, at this final 3, she answering the questions like just like Heidi in a sense, and just like Yam in a sense. So it could have been up for grabs. People just came in, I think, with their mind made up, or someone already put a seed in their mind, like a Carson. He's the she said I want a Tika on jury, but she got what she wished for, and it was Jam's boy. So
Right. Yeah, I
Right.
think I think Jam definitely was talked about a lot in the jury from Carson, like saying how he played such a great game, and I think they came in with an idea that they were probably going to vote Jam unless anyone else like really swayed them. Because I was shocked that it was a 7-1-0 vote. And the one vote for Heidi was swayed during final tribal, so it probably would have been an 8-0-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, swayed. Yeah. But yeah, I think the reason Carson was like trying to coach Carolyn was like he knew that he was already going to vote Jam, but he wanted to give Carolyn the best chance of at least coming in second and maybe getting a vote or two. And like he probably felt bad, like I'm voting Jam already, so I just hope you look good in front of the jury and you don't look like you're a complete goat. You're like, I
Yeah.
feel, yeah,
No,
and
I
also
agree.
she brought up a lot of pre-jury game as well. And the pre-jury, you can't vote. So it's
Yeah.
like we didn't see that. We didn't go to those tribals.
right.
And and it's like just you shooting yourself in the foot right now. And it's like, read your room. There's no pre-juries up here. So
Right. And I think you know, all three of these, players had a great final tribal council. I think that they all had a pretty good final tribal council. Excluding like the moment I didn't like Heidi like interrupting. That
yeah.
kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. I think that's like a
Yeah,
big like no. And like in that way. I feel like if like Jam was saying something that was like Heidi did this, blah blah blah, and then you kind of just like, no, I didn't, right? Like this is why I didn't, whatever. But it's like he was just everyone has the opportunity to talk game and talk about their game, and I just thought it was kind of like you want to we're earning votes right now, like you're still being looked at for every little thing that you do,
Mm-hmm.
although minds are made up and juries come to consensuses and stuff, but it's like you have to be just socially aware of just everything that you're doing in that time. But I think they all did like an exceptional job at like talking about their games, talking about how they, were different from other people in the game. And I think we did get a winner that deserved it. And I'm so happy for the way that things turned out.
yeah, absolutely. And I agree with the whole Heidi thing. I feel like Jam was asked the question. He was in the middle of speaking. Like, if you have something to say about what Jam just said, wait for your turn. You shouldn't be interrupting him while he's in the middle of talking. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit too.
But I think okay. Well, I think that her doing that, it was stupid, right? But the jury sees that, and that goes back to the jury saying like, that rubs us the wrong way. Like all of us, we didn't like that. I didn't like it either, and it was just like no, But you got to continue to play the game until the game is over. You got like Pat said, you basically got to know when to shut up, wait till your turn, and then bring it up. Like, oh, maybe I don't know, Jam. You wasn't at every vote when the merge started. I know for a fact that we had the numbers and we was pulling you in, and now he can't talk. You know what I'm saying? But she got like that was a lot of the times.
In my mind, I don't know if I fully agree with y'all as far as that's concerned. Maybe I'm just more of a robot. But when we look back at like what we were critiquing Lauren for not doing, right? Like speak your truth, throw everything at the wall. That's what I saw Heidi doing, right? Heidi goes in knowing that her shots at winning this are close to none, right? So I'm gonna go and tear down whatever I can. And worst case scenario, I get last place, like I already expected I was, right? So personally, I respect it. Go out swinging. Sure, you can do so in a more like socially courteous fashion, but I think the sentiment's there nonetheless.
I guess you're kind of right, because if you think about it, in season 43, Gabler shut Cassidy up and said, like, actually, like, you weren't in charge of that vote. Like, it was between me, Jesse, and Cody. Like, when Cassidy had brought up,
No, he
like,
got confirmation. He got confirmation from others.
Yeah, I think it was actually Cassidy that was like, well, don't you think you're still kind of here because like people thought they could beat you type like everyone thought, we could beat you type thing, like kind of like framing him as a goat during final tribal council,
right, yeah,
when the perception was not that at all.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, it just does come down to social awareness and perception, and those are two things to kind of balance that are very challenging. But I want to hear from you guys on this real quick. Say if you thought that Carolyn was going to at least get one vote, go.
Aye,
I.
aye.
Okay, so we all
Yeah.
did. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think, was the reasoning of her being a zero vote finalist? Govind, what do you think?
I think it was who she's sitting next to. I think the fact that she's sitting next to Jam Jam's got all of the same connections that she has, if not more.
Yeah.
Jam Jam is also much more forward in his strategy than Carolyn is. And I think it's really Carolyn begun to unmask herself and say like, "Hey, I actually was much more self-aware than you're giving me credit for," which is cool and all if you're sitting next to maybe like Lauren and Heidi. If you're sitting next to
Yeah.
Jam Jam or another Tika member, I don't think that carries the same amount of weight. And I think in addition to that, I think it just comes down to like who do people want to give the $1 million to? This game
Yeah.
is chiefly social amongst everything else, and I think Jam Jam is quite possibly the best social player we've ever seen. And I just think it's very hard to compete against that. And the one person who he's not super close with, Danny, is the one vote he doesn't get.
Right.
I think I feel like just the fact that she didn't get a vote is because, yeah, like, she's next to Jam Jam, who they both played great games, but Carolyn's game was more low key, and not many people saw it until late in the game when they heard some stories about what happened with Carolyn's idol and the fake idol and everything, and the fact that she played an idol. But Jam Jam played more of a, like, out in the open, like, he was targeted a few times. He was like known as a threat early on because people were throwing around that he was a threat, and no one was really throwing around that Carolyn was a threat. So if you have someone who's playing a more low-key game against someone who is playing a more out in the open game, even though you both play great games, usually the person who was more out in the open as a threat ends up getting most of the jury votes. And the fact that Heidi got one vote and Carolyn didn't, that usually comes down to, if you played a good game and also have a really close ally on the jury, they're more interested in giving you that vote to win. And Carolyn and Jam Jam only had one person who they were extremely close with on the jury, and that was Carson. And Carson can only vote for one person. So, and then Danny and Heidi had Danny. The only person that we would have thought maybe Carolyn would have had was Franny, but it seemed like Franny just wanted to vote for whoever she thought was the true winner, even though she respected Carolyn, probably thought Jam Jam's game was a little bit better. And so that's, if I thought she was going to get at least one vote, I thought it would be Franny. So the fact that Franny didn't,
Agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
You agree, Jay West?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we go to commercial, I just wanted to ask one quick question that I've been thinking about a lot, and just wanted to hear your thoughts on it. The fact that the day 26 breakfast now is like pre-made and brought to you by Boat and everything. do you like that, or do you wish they went back to where it was or older seasons where they had to go to tree mail to get it and they had to cook it themselves, and it felt like a lot more meaningful of a day
And every
breakfast than just a platter that you could win at a reward.
I
I
don't
don't.
really care.
Yeah, I don't care. I look at it like, see, I'm older than you guys. I look at it like, look at the tribes now. I mean, the camps. They don't even make the camps anymore. From window season, they were looking like they were in a hotel, and if people were actually caring about, and you watch late game, people are just sleeping on the ground. So no one cares about actually the camp life. So cooking, who the hell is going to cook? Yeah, just give me the food, right? Give me the food, and we made it here. We can eat afterwards, and you
Mhm.
get parasites for making shit out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That could actually have a lot to do with it. You know what I mean? Because I've heard a lot of stories of like, you know, players from
Tony
previous
said he came
seasons, like,
home and like lost
yeah, they
mad
got,
weight.
yeah, just have like parasites like in their stomach, which is like
Mhm.
probably not fun. But yeah, I mean, for me, I don't really, that's neither, I don't really care.
I also kind of miss, like, I mean, they don't really have much of a camp anymore, like you said, and also they go to the new beach now, and where they aren't setting up a shelter. But I kind of miss when they would like burn down their camp like before going to final tribal. Like that was also like a big staple that I kind of miss.
Hmm. Yeah. We're going to take a short commercial break just to talk about competitive events. Competitive events is run by Johnny Stockton. It's a live reality game based on the East Coast. I met a lot of great people through competitive events. Govind, Jay West, Steven, and myself all played in an LRG together. It was awesome, a lot of fun. So if you want to get the experience, you want to be the sole survivor, hit up Johnny Stockton, hit up competitive events for all information.
All right, guys, we are back, and let's go back to talking about final tribal. So Jam, I think, uh, really solidified his win after one answer that I really loved from him, and that was the question about how did you handle your emotions, and he talked a little bit about his emotions, but he mainly talked about how he handled the jury's emotions, and he would say how he made really close relationships with them and would listen to them talk about food, their families, their work, and he would see the twinkle in their eye when talking about the things they love. And then whenever the twinkle was gone during strategy talk, then he would know that they were lying to them. And I thought that was a really great answer, and that really shows that Jam, which is a very important part in Survivor, being able to read people and read people's emotions, read if somebody's lying to you, and so I thought that was perfectly crafted by Jam.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, I mean, we can say whatever we want, but if anything, that solidified his win right there was that answer. I think it showed social awareness. I think it showed emotional awareness. And I think Jan was able to hit on all facets. When it came to social, you saw who he was as a person, and he didn't hide who he was. He was able to manage his threat level like very well for being that big of a character. Because I know if I'm out there, I'm thinking to myself too, like, who's gonna be the big cat? Like, who are the big characters out there? Like, who? You know what I mean? So like that's where I'm thinking too. And I think he did a great job with that. And I think that answer just showed like, you know, how much he did have in the game that was like that he knew what was going on. And he knew like everything that was going on. I think his narrative that I don't really think we saw much in trial. I know it was brought up, but we may not have saw it where he was talking about like his whole narrative being like, if you write my name down, like you go home. And I think that just everything blended together just made a great recipe for Final Tribal Council. And I think he did great.
Yeah, towards the end of Final Tribal Council, he didn't explain it the way that we see in his confessionals, but he did touch upon it and pretty much said that he wanted to work with and keep in the game people that wanted to work with him. And if you wrote his name down, then later in the game, if you were still in the game, they would be perfectly fine with writing his name down again because he already did it in the past. So he was trying to keep people in the game that wanted to work with him and vote out people who didn't and had already written his name down. And he said how that's exactly what happened. All the people who wrote his name down and didn't want to play with him is how he worded it. was on the jury. So I thought that was also a great part of his final tribal council. And also when Carolyn was talking about how she played her idol to make sure Danny went home, Jam Jam mentioned that, well, you didn't have to play your idol. You could have just trusted me that I was able to convince Jamie and Lauren to vote with us and not vote for Carson. So pretty much he discredited that big move that everyone thought was a huge move, which made her a threat, and also showed the jury that he had the skills to be able to convince Jamie and Lauren to vote with him and not against Carson, who at the time was a big threat, and that gave Tika the numbers. So that one discredited Carolyn and also made Jam Jam look like a much better social and strategic player.
Great. I want to actually talk about Carolyn too for a second, because when Franny mentions, when she's talking to Carolyn about, using her, emotions to her advantage in this game and how she was able to connect with people. And Carolyn talked about her addiction and how it's been hard for her to navigate life through all of those hardships that she had to face. And I just want to give major props to Carolyn. Like, that is such like a hard thing to get through. Like, personally, like I've seen it with people that I love. Like, I just have like so much like respect for Carolyn in the game that she played. And I think she did a great job like making sure that people knew that like I came out here to be genuine and I came out here to be myself. And I came out here to play a game that maybe I didn't think that I could play as well, but I did, and I'm here. And I think just to kind of, you know, come full circle with Carolyn, I think her just story from the beginning to the end is just such a full circle moment. Although she didn't get the votes to win, like she won. You know what I mean? Like, she also won. And I think that's like another great thing that Survivor does for people.
I feel like Carolyn's going to be, if people think of Survivor 44, yes, Jam Jam won and played an amazing game, but I think the first thing that people are going to think of when they think of Survivor 44 is Carolyn. I think Carolyn's was, I think, the biggest takeaway from the season. Great character.
Yeah. Govind, I want to hear from you. Like, do you agree about the whole Carolyn thing? Like, the way that she was able to just like craft that narrative about like the hardships that she went through. Like, I just think that she did like such a beautiful job, and I feel like that you would think kind of similarly to me in that way.
100% agreed. I think that it was very much from the heart. Um, I just think there's a difference between what is going to convince a jury to vote for you versus what is true to your own narrative.
Yeah.
Like I think she spoke beautifully about like her own journey, her own growth, things of that nature. But I don't think that's what the jury wanted to hear from her. I think the jury wanted to see a more jam, like balance your journey with telling me why you outplayed the people next to you, which I
Right.
don't think was as clearly narrated by Carolyn.
Right. And I feel like that's like, you have to know the jury. Like, what do they want to vote for? It's like me and Steven talked last week. Like, there's no way that Franny doesn't vote for Carolyn because of that emotional. That's a, bad read on our end. Right. And I just think it shows just like how great this game is. You could just put, you know, 8 people on a jury, play a game, and anytime that you recycle and rotate and do anything like that, like, you're always going to get a different outcome. And I think that it's about ultimately how you craft and how you say and articulate what you did rather than just everything else. So yeah, I want to talk to Jordan though about Heidi there. So that way we can kind of just move on. But the way that Heidi, defended her game too, felt like she wanted to promote that, I was the last Soka member. I made this big move, took out the biggest threat with fire. Like, what do you think was lacking on her end to get more votes? Do you think it is the preconceived notion that it is going to be Jam, or do you think that there's something that she may have been lacking to bring up at Final Tribal Council?
So Heidi, I think Heidi, one thing, I think she begged a lot in the final tribal, and I felt like that rubbed people the wrong way. And her cutting Jam Jam off, it didn't help either. But I think she made a lot of big moves, and I think she could have just used a lot of Danny moves as her moves, because he isn't there anymore, and she could have used him as the shield, right? It always helps when you're the last of your tribe because you think that your tribe or is going to be willing. So that's why I think she dropped the ball right there by piggybacking. Like, she could have went with Lauren and then had Carolyn. It would have been 3 separate tribes right there, 3 female final 3. It would have been dynamic. And Jeff even gave her that piggyback like, oh, this the fastest fire in fucking history. So that's another badge of honor. And granted, like no one cares about it on this pod, but like I don't want to speak for you guys, but I know I really don't care for the fire, but it helped her case. She won at the right time, and she maneuvered like at the right times because she played the idol when she didn't have to. Neither, no one cared to bring that up. And she didn't trust people. She didn't have any numbers, and she went right back on the radar. Like until she won again. Lauren stayed the target, and I think her and Lauren had the same amount of numbers on jury, so they just worried about Lauren connections, I guess, because what you know. So I think she could have. Heidi probably. Nah, I don't think she would have got one more vote, but I definitely think Carolyn could have got maybe a vote or two. But I just think Heidi, like at her end game, she didn't do too much. I think jury management, and I think that played a big part.
Yeah,
Right.
Heidi seems like just very hyper focused on getting to the end. I know she said countless times like I'm not
I
playing for
want to be
second, I'm
number
not
one.
playing for third. I want to be number one. But a lot of it is just like get to the end, get to the end. Because I remember her saying in the finale like I already have a resume, right? I just need to get there to talk about it, and we ultimately see what happens there. So, Steven,
And
anything else you want to kind of talk about with this before we shift gears a bit?
yeah, I just want to mention about Heidi. Like, yes, she didn't play as good of a game to be able to win. But I definitely give her props to the fact that she won that fire, because if she didn't win that fire, probably wouldn't have gotten Danny's vote. Probably wouldn't have gotten second place. At least second place gets you 100 grand, so a little bit better than third. So at least she can say she got second instead of third, and that she at least played a good enough game to not get no votes at the end, which is something she should definitely be proud of. Um, but also I mean, this is skipping ahead a little bit, but it's just talking about jury votes. In the after show, Danny said how he voted for Heidi because not only the fact that she did a ballsy move and went to fire, but because she explained in final tribal council her reasoning for Danny's vote out. And even though he didn't think it was the best move, he respected the way she explained it. I'm thinking back to that vote, and didn't Heidi and Danny vote together to take out Carson? Like, wasn't Heidi not a part of the Danny vote? Like, I was very confused by that. Maybe they didn't like show that in the final tribal council, and maybe she did have something to do with it. I don't know, but I thought that was weird that Danny said that was one of the reasons that swayed him, um, because she didn't vote against him. She voted with him.
Right. Yeah, I don't recall necessarily, but I would have to go back and look. But yeah, certainly, a great final tribal. Jam Jam wins the $1 million. Soul Survivor season 44. Congrats again, Jam Jam.
Yes.
I called it. And fun fact, I got not to pat myself on the back here. I called Gabler too, which I think is a harder thing to do, but I called Gabler, and I can go on the record with like 2 people that were there when
That's
I did
awesome.
it. But
Yeah.
like I called Gabler too. I was wrong about 41 and 42, but I can say that I'm right about 43 and 44, which is really cool. So let's
I did want to just mention
oh yeah.
a couple more things
Start.
about Final Tribal. One is I just thought it was really funny and cool that whenever whenever Carson was asking the question about their strategy, he would bring up the exact like to the 2 decimal places percentage of how many times each person was in the right side of the vote. And I thought that was really funny that Carson was bringing up these exact numbers. Like for Carolyn, like you were on the right side of the vote 88.89% of the time, and I thought that was pretty funny.
Numbers
And
wise.
and also something I want to bring up. I feel like in a lot of final tribals, the jury respects a lot more the social and strategic aspect of the game, and really they talk about the physical, but I feel like it's not as important to the jury as the social and strategic game. I want to hear your thoughts on that, and if physical should be thought of as more important. Like for example, if Heidi had won 5 immunities, let's say, and was in this, and this is the final 3, like because she won so many times, would she have beaten Jam Jam, or would the jury still respect the strategic and social game by Jam Jam more? And is that how juries should be looking at the game?
I think that anybody can dictate a narrative, right? I think that it's always about the cast. I always say that it's always about who you're playing with. But you know, it's let's just say Heidi won those 5 immunities. She could potentially say, "I won when I had to." We all was trying to win, and I knew for a fact if I didn't win again, clear target on my back. Look at Franny. So I had to win when I had to, and then to make it to the end with 5 wins, I had to go under the radar. I had to go with the flow. I had to go with the majority. I had to play the game. So maybe the jury would go with that because no one actually, like you said, now times no one really doesn't care about the physical aspect of the game. But I think that people are just threatened by the physical aspect. People like the physical players, and then they're just like constantly forgetting about the social players and the mental players. And it's like they're the real threats in a game like this. I would consider myself as a physical player. I can just help people. Like that's what I always tell players. Like I'm giving y'all the tea. I'm like, the great shield. Like I will be your shield. I'm not gonna be your sword. Like just bring me. I'll take all the hits for you. Because I'm Wild West, and I know for a fact that people play these games respecting the bold players. Like all of us are schemers. We all make moves, but it's about who can present themselves at the end. And even if I can't say I made a move better than you guys, I feel like I have an ally in a jury that like Jay West, you did. I remember, and I'm like, yeah, thank you, because I had to put it on the line for my game, right? And this is a 1 day game or like a 26-day game, and people did get close, so it get harder, but you like we always respect the bold, I think, and strategic as well. But physical, it just get pushed under the rug, and it's just about the narrative on how you sway it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Survivor at its core is going to be a social game, right? I mean, strategy is very, very, important. Being physical is very important. Um, but for me, like that question it becomes situational because like Jay West says, it's always going to come down to the cast and the narrative that is shaped there, right? And what you're able to articulate. But it's like one of those things where it's like someone like Xander wins 5 immunities and gets to the end, and it's like, should that be rewarded in a sense? Well, he may have not even been a target for us, right? But it's like someone that does have a target on their back wins 5 immunities. They're going to approach that
Right.
differently.
Yeah.
So I think it always just depends on the cast. And I think that's what it's always going to. And I think that's what keeps the game alive and what keeps it exciting and what keeps it moving is that it's always going to come down to the players and it's going to come down to that social experiment. And that's what it is at its core. So that's what I would say. I think, it really depends. Some juries are going to be bitter. Some juries are going to be over the moon excited to give someone $1 million. Some are going to be halfway in between of both. So it really just depends on the people that you have sitting in those seats casting their final vote. But that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah. And also, this has been rumored. I don't know if this is 100% going to happen for future seasons, but there's been a rumor that the jury might actually be able to watch the immunity challenges in future seasons. And I know the fire making challenge is thought of as a big move and very important if you win by a lot of juries lately, just because the jury can actually see it and sees them win, sees them get excited, see them make a quick fire. Do you think that's going to change people's perception on what is important out of social, strategic, and physical if the jury members are able to watch these immunity wins? For example, like the last gasp, like that's a very difficult challenge. And if people were able to see Jam Jam win it, like they would think even higher of Jam Jam than just hearing, oh, he won the challenge.
I have some thoughts there, which basically comes back to the fact of what Pat said. I think this is a social game. I think the way challenges are right now, challenges allow you to be safe, which then allows you to drive the vote yourself. I think that that's the function of a challenge in Survivor right now. If you want a game that cares more about the challenges, go play the challenge, go play iterations of Big Brother, right? I think this game is all about who do you know, who are you connected with, and you see that in the voting, right? Not only with Pat's example, even here, like Jam Jam was by no means an immunity threat, and basically almost sweeps the jury. Now, what I think I had such a thought that I was so proud of, and I've completely lost my train of thought. So back
Happens
to
all the
y'all.
time.
No idea.
Well, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think that it's more of a social and strategic game. I think that should be looked at as the main decision making of whether you should win the game or not. I think if you win a lot of challenges, that's just you being able to make yourself safe for that vote. It's just the challenges are put in so it gives you a chance to win immunity for yourself if you're on the chopping block, rather than just getting voted out because you're the next biggest threat. So it just gives you a chance to move further into the game if you're a target. And I think it should be looked at as important, but like if two people had a really similar game and one won more immunities, I understand putting that into your decision. But if someone just won a lot of immunities but didn't play a social and strategic game compared to someone who played socially and strategically, I feel like that should be looked at a lot more as important than a physical game.
Let's move it on to the after show here, because we definitely got to touch on the after show here. I miss the reunion so much. I know that we are where it's at. I know that Mr. Jeff doesn't plan on changing much. I think he loves it because it's raw. It's right in the moment. Players don't have the opportunity to kind of watch it back. It's kind of just like a fresh narrative of we're right outside the game now. The game is officially over. And these are your first moments, like outside of the game, that like don't matter. Like not, because the voting is done. The game is over, right? And I don't know. I think this was at least the best one of the four. I
Yeah,
liked it.
I like that they do this kind of after show, but I don't like that they don't do the old after show that we used to have. I'd be opposed to having both. Having this after show so we get everyone's raw emotions and raw feelings
We're
about
not
what's
that
going on in the
lucky.
game, and then also see the live show. Like I know we're not that lucky, but that would be great if they could bring that back. Not for like reading the votes. I understand like reading the votes there so that they can have this after show and whatnot. But like I did miss the reading the votes. But if they're not going to read the votes in like Los Angeles or in New York, wherever they have it, at least have a show where the players had a time to reflect over the last many months on the game and then can share their new opinions, like see what people were saying behind their back, who was actually loyal to them, how they feel about that now, stuff like that. Like that would be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I agree, because for me, like, like we said in the beginning of the podcast, we played a 1-day LRG together, and I made it to the end. I lost, right? But I just remember like losing and being like one of my first thoughts was like, how did like I thought of the after show. I don't know why, but I was like, I thought about like I can't imagine like playing 26 days. I played 26 days, losing and just having to like that's a lot to process, man. That's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a lot to process. Like that 1-day LRG, like messed me up a little bit. Like I'm so glad I did it, but it had my brain going for such a long time. I'm sure we can all, Jay West and I, he informed me of, gamer PTSD, and it was definitely lingering a bit. So I just can't, imagine the position that, people are in that have to do this after show right away. I understand why Jeff loves it. You're going to get the raw cut, but, yeah, why don't we talk about this after show specifically and the little cool stuff that we got to see from it?
Yeah, so the one big thing which I really enjoyed watching was Jeff telling Jamie that her idol was actually fake, and that Matthew planted it and that Matthew had the real idol. Her face and everyone else's face was priceless. Like she was so beyond shocked, and I knew it was going to be a great reaction, especially because of how much she talked in confessionals about how this was a real idol and that she was upset that it went out with Kane.
I'd pay much more to see her face if she actually got to play
Yeah, me.
it.
I know.
I don't think none of the fakes got played this season. Everyone had a fake and no one played it.
Yeah, it was like the fake idol season. It seemed like after the first few episodes, it was made to seem like it was the fake idol season. There were honestly at one point in the game more fake idols than there were real idols left in the game, and not a single fake idol was played. I mean, we definitely got gypped of some great some great tribal council moments with fake idols being played. I wish Matt would have been able to play a fake idol. Jamie, who else had a fake idol? I think
Mainly everybody.
Sarah.
Everyone had
Sarah had a
something.
fake idol. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I wish we would have saw that. I think that would have been great. I loved getting our first one in a while. Our little showmance couple here, Matt and Franny. Love to see them still together. They are perfect for each other. We wish them
Yeah, they
nothing but
are.
the best. But I love seeing them get that little highlight there too for themselves. Great couple.
Absolutely.
Great couple.
Manny, as the the jury made the said their name was Manny.
Right. And then we get Carson spilling the beans about NASA.
Yes. Oh my God, their faces, the Jam Jam and Carolyn's face when they found out that Carson had worked for NASA, that was amazing. They were
Uh,
so shocked.
on a quick, not to fully derail the
No.
after show here, but I was thinking a little bit about this with the Tika 3. It seems, at least by looking at all their post show stuff, that all three of them are semi open to the idea of returning. Um, I when I think of that, I actually think that like Jam Jam has the best like winners equity of the three of them. I think Carson's like made
Interesting.
himself out to be too big of a threat if he comes back. I think Carolyn is shown herself underneath the disguise, and people realize, oh, she's not just going to be this like wild person. Instead, she's actually very measured. Whereas Jam Jam's just a likable guy. Like we've saw him one, but like I want to be his friend. I want to work with him. Like, what are y'all's thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree.
Great. I think great topic for one. And that's another thing when I like games like this and you bring up a topic and that's like another narrative change. And I love the fact that Jam Jam would be, I agree with you 1000%. I think Jam Jam is the best option to win out of those three, more so because like we know Carson what he can do and what his weaknesses is. So you just got to nip it in the butt early.
Oh yeah, I also agree. I think Jam definitely has the best like winning chance with those three. I think for exactly what you said, Carson like said like 6 times on his edit that like everyone knows I could beat them. Right. So it's like one of those things where like they're gonna know he's very calculated. Like I knew he was calculated the minute he stepped on the island, right? So I just knew he was gonna be a smart guy. And same with Carolyn, like I I, I I don't know. I'd be scared of Carolyn if I was playing against her again. I
I wouldn't. I wouldn't though. More so
no,
because like no, because Carolyn is so easy to get out. Like if she didn't have Carson to flip that first vote, she would have went first. I
true.
think because like she is herself unapologetically, and that's why everyone loves her, right?
But I think that's the
But
same reason why it's hard to get her out. No one wants they love her. It's infectious.
I see that's why I love Survivor, right? We all have these different opinions, and
Yeah.
whoever gets to the end wins. Their word means the most. Like, and I feel like she would be easier to get out because that reason alone. Like when you play a game and you have so many like disagreement with your tribe, that's the easiest way to get somebody out. Like if we ain't got shit to talk about, I'm like, yo, who likes more cookies or donuts? And we all raised for cookies, and I'm like, well, let's get the guy that said donuts. Like,
Right.
let's just go. Let's just it's easy, bro. Like, but realistically, we just gotta get on the same page here. And then she's always the one giving pushback just from being herself.
I honestly side with Jordan on this. I think that Carolyn, if she played again, would be an easy early boot, even though she's someone who's great to have around because of her personality. Um, One, she's terrible at challenges, so I feel like she would be easy early boot there. And as we've seen in this season, even she is said by even her closest allies, Jam Jam and Carson, that she can be very unpredictable. And unpredictable people are not the people you really want to align with. They aligned early on because they had a really close social bond with each other and they wanted to play this game together and they thought that if they stuck together they could do really well. But if they didn't have as close of a bond developed early on in the game as they did, I feel like most people wouldn't have wanted to trust Carolyn because she can be very chaotic. And so I don't know necessarily if she would have a great chance of winning. I feel like she would have a good chance of getting voted out early. And then Carson, I feel like, yeah, he might not win if he plays another season, but I think he has the best chance of getting onto another season out of the three of them because Jam Jam's a winner. The amount of winners that come back on this show, I think maybe 2 or 3 seasons in the 44 seasons did a winner come back, and one of them was Winners at War. Usually they like to have the winners keep their winning season, and usually they don't like to bring them back again. Carson was so close to winning and such a great character that even though he's very strategic, you want someone like that to be able to strategize with. And if he's someone who's that likable, like we saw in this season, he's going to be able to make a lot of close alliance members. Maybe this time they'll actually get him out at Final 8 or Final 7 if in the next season he plays. But I feel like Carson would be someone a lot of people would like to work with because he's someone who can be very social and help make alliances for yourself and your close allies, and someone good to strategize with, because you always want someone you can strategize a lot with.
I know we're coming up on time real quick. I want to just hop on what Steven said as quickly as I can. First and foremost, I cannot disagree with you more about the fact that Carson's the most likely to return out of these three. I think I'd put my entire mortgage on Carolyn returning, being the most likely to return out of all of these people. Thereafter, if I see what you're saying about not wanting to bring back winners, but I think Jam Jam is just the personality type that everyone on production seems to be eating up. I think you already see Carson is the Christian Hubicki-esque character. We haven't seen Christian back or things of that nature. So I think those are my thoughts there. Secondly, as far as the Carolyn stuff is concerned, I actually think that the season we just watched is the outlier for her archetype. I think for many of the reasons that Jay West described, I think she's a very easy original boot. But I think now in a returning season where everyone's already had the chance to fall in love with her personality by watching her one time, she does a lot better on a returning season than she might on a new person season. She just got, I don't want to say very lucky on this first new person season, because she did very well. But I agree. She lucked out with Carson being there. But on a future season, I think people eat her up.
That's a good point. I feel like after watching her season, people are going to be wanting to work with her more. And she actually will have a chance to be more strategic than just being the third person in a 3-person strong alliance. She didn't get to really show her strategy. And now that people know that she could be under the radar, I feel like she'll, in a future season, play more strategically and more out there. She already made it to the end and she got no votes. So now I feel like she'd play more aggressive and we'd see a more fun and a more strategic Carolyn than we saw this season, even though she was strategic, a more outwardly strategic game.
Couldn't agree more. When we get back, we are going to finish this episode for you guys. We are going to just get through the rest of the after show here and talk about Survivor 45 and what to expect. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back with you shortly. For the final time of the night, we want to thank everybody who's been listening to the Tribe Alliance podcast. Jay West, Govind, it's been a blast. Everybody who's been listening thus far, thank you so much. Let us know what you think, subscribe, all that good stuff. But before we finish this podcast, Steven and I created something that we want to do on the podcast, and it's Survivor Trivia. And if you make it far enough into the podcast, you'll be able to play with us every week. So each week, Steven and I are going to alternate back and forth between Survivor Trivia questions that we make up, and those questions should be answered by you guys. So what we need from you is to listen to the question, DM us your answer, and at the end, when we close that window, right, we'll let you guys know when that window closes. We'll pick a winner based off of a random Google generator. Obviously, there might be a handful of people that pick the same answer, so that's why we'll do it that way. Each week, you'll be able to compete. Here's what you're playing for. You're playing for a cameo for under $50 from any Survivor of your choice, right? So you go on Cameo, you'll pick out a Survivor player that you'd like to hear from. Let us know who you want to hear from, and we will take care of the rest for you. So let's finish this podcast, but before we do that, here is your first trivia question. Who is the first player in Survivor history to play an extra vote at Tribal Council? All right, so think about that. Let that marinate. Think about that. Let's get back to the podcast, finish this thing. Welcome back to the Tribe Alliance podcast. I just want to remind everybody to like and subscribe. We are going to be doing these podcasts often, so if you want to see more guests, if you want to be a guest, hit us up. You can come on. We want to chat with everybody in the community. I've said that before. This is a big community. We're very welcoming. We're very friendly. We want to talk about the game that we all love. So we're going to do that. We're just going to finish up with the after show here. Steven, I know Steven's got some inside scoop here. He got the privilege to hang with some alumni and some castaways, and I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so on Tuesday and Wednesday of the week of finale, I was at the Bryson Wendell pre-party and watch party, and I got to meet almost the entire 44 cast and a bunch more survivors, which was really awesome. But other than just meeting them and talking to them for about a minute or so, I actually got to talk a little bit longer with Matt, Matt Blankenship from Survivor 44. And one of the questions I asked him was about if Franny was actually considering dropping against Brandon in the final 11 to make sure that Matt was safe or not. And she also touched upon this in the after show, and pretty much what she was going through her mind at the time that maybe she should drop, but she was talking about how she thought she was one of the weakest people left in the game, and she was going up against Brandon, this strong physical threat, and she just wanted to prove to herself that she can push herself as far as she possibly can to try to win this. So she wanted to stay in the challenge so that she can show herself that, you know, she's a fighter and she can even beat the best people out here. Unfortunately, it led to Matt's demise, but she just it was more of a personal thing for her rather than worrying about who might be safe and who might not be, because Matt could have been safe. It just didn't end up working out for Matt. So that was her thought process behind it. She was considering it, but she decided to stay in and try to beat Brandon herself. And Matt and Franny are still a couple to this day, which is awesome. Good for Manny. And another thing that was brought up at the in the after show was Jam Jam said how he wrote out a list of all 43 Survivor winners, and then next to 44 he wrote Jam Jam, and I think that's awesome. He manifested his win, and when I got to meet him a little towards the middle of the season, I got to meet him and talk with him for like 15-20 minutes. It was a great conversation, and what he gave me advice saying, you know, if you want to do anything in life that you feel really strongly about, just manifest it. And so not only did he give great advice, but he also took his own advice and manifested this win, which I thought was pretty awesome. Shout out to Jam Jam. Shout out to the Three Stooges. I got my Tika buff on that I got at the Bryson Wendell watch party. So I'm all for the Three Stooges and Jam Jam. And congrats, Jam Jam, on a great win.
Yeah. I want to just say as well, like, with that whole Franny, you know, in that challenge, like I think Franny, you know, ultimately makes like the right move for herself there. I know, like, strategically and like just the way that the game was going at that time, like people may disagree with that, but I just wanted to say, like, you know, I think that what she did was good. I think I would have done the same thing if I was Franny, right? And I think that she's, you know, bummed that, you know, Matt went. We were all bummed when Matt went. I was sad when Matt went. I liked Matt a lot. But ultimately, like, I'm cool with the decision that, you know, she wanted to keep fighting and show she's a fighter and prove herself, because she was there to prove herself, right? She didn't think that she was going to win challenges, and she's a beast. And I love to see that as well. She was playing for herself in that very moment too, and I'm always going to root for that too. Govind J, you got anything on that, or same regard there?
Yeah, same shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I feel you. All right. Well, let's just roll it over then. I think we had a great after show. I think it was the best of the new era. But I want to talk about something that we can get excited for. All right. We are getting Survivor 45 back on our screens. Looks like it's going to be 3 tribes of 6 again. Looks like a similar format. I want to pass this to Jay West. Familiar face in the preview there. What do you think?
Yeah, the robber.
Yeah.
I seen a tweet. People saying they always cheer for the people that get robbed, so now you finally get to cheer for the robber. I'm happy to cheer from Brandon. some close friend of mine. It's not super close, but we all met through this live reality game world. I feel like now in the new era, we're going to see more and more live reality gamers. And like Steven said, he met Jam Jam. It's about manifesting. Yes, I believe that because I met Brandon my first time ever playing Sequester. He took me out to the bar as like a huge reality fan, and I was just dope to know people that knew me, and it was like I wasn't great at the game that I played, but he was super like welcoming and down to earth, and we always kept in touch, and I met him so many times after that, and he just a gamer as well. I always feel like it's always about who you know and connecting with people, and you see how that worked for Jam Jam and in the game aspect, but in the real world, like cheering for Brandon because I know him, the bias part of it. I think he's an outgoing person. I think he's going to do great. He's super fan of the game, which helps. But yeah, I'm cheering for him as clear as day. I don't really I didn't dissect the cast too much yet. But yeah, I feel like it's always harder for me now to because this is the second time I came into the scenario for 42. Like Tori Menon, she was like my girl. I loved her, and it was a biased review. I still on FaceTime with her today. Actually, I was telling her, I'm like, yo, you still can come back because I honestly think she got robbed. Like, she went out with Drea,
Tori.
basically gunning for Marianne. That's another, and they both played their fucking idols, and she went out on a. I still
Yeah,
talk about it.
there was nothing she could do there.
And Tori was a beast. She was busting ass, so I don't care. I play with Tori. She's a comp beast. She really is down to earth, you know. But yeah, I'm cheering for Brandon. 45 is here. He's a super fan. We're all fans of the games, and I feel like manifesting is real. You just gotta put yourself out there. So
yeah, and Brandon got 2 confessionals in the preview too, so maybe that's foreshadowing that Brandon's gonna do well. I hope so. I got to meet Brandon in person at the watch party also, which is great. Before meeting him, I just knew he was a friend of a friend from these LRGs. We all play the same LRGs, so it's really cool that someone from our LRG community gets to be represented on Survivor 45, and it makes me realize that when I originally thought there's no way I can get on the show, like someone like Brandon can get on the show who does the same things as us, like we can totally get on the show too. We just got to keep trying.
Oh yeah, no, it was awesome to see like a familiar face. Like I said, I had just gotten to know him just through like DM and text, and you can just tell he's a down to earth, genuine social guy. I think he's gonna play a great social game. I think him getting 2 confessionals is a really good sign. I think they also, the confessionals were based around just his personality, and the way that he's going to approach this game, which I think is a very good sign. So we're all the Travel Lines podcast definitely rooting for Brandon, and definitely excited to get to know this 45 cast, and we'll definitely do a deep dive of that before 45 airs. But Govind, I wanted to ask you a question. Bruce is back, baby. Let's go. What do you think?
Let's go. Hell yeah.
What do you think about that?
I'm so happy for him. Like I generally thought like when he first went out that really blows for him. He's never gonna get another chance. Then we find out that he's gonna get another chance, and I'm thrilled. Seems like a great dude. Hella unfortunate the way he went out. And I was telling my brother about this. Like half the experience is yes, you're on a TV show, but you're also part of this family. Like, look at us. We played a 1-day game and we're still hanging out like this. This is crazy. Imagine how close the people are who like go through this entire experience together. And he gets to be part of 2 groups that have that experience, right? This past season and this next season. From just a pure life standpoint, I'm so happy for him because I'm sure it's super enriching.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree anymore. Like, I love that if anyone's going to get another chance from this new era right away, it's Bruce. Like, it's so unfortunate and like so unlucky. And I know that like people would argue like, well, that's part of the game, blah, blah, blah. Like, he head first. Yeah, but I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I want Bruce back. I'm so glad that he gets a chance with 45. I think that we can actually see the type of player that Bruce is going to be. And I think that, if that experience changes the way he goes into this experience, we'll see. We don't really know, but I'm definitely excited to see his journey. And I hope that it is not short lived, and that I hope that, we do see a lot of Bruce.
He definitely won't be diving headfirst in the first challenge.
No, he's going to be very cautious.
You got him jumping off the boat with his like,
Bruce is about to only do puzzles. He's going to be the puzzle guy exclusively.
He's like, yeah, if you have me like crawling, don't. You'll see later. Because I don't think they they didn't see 45 44, right? 45 didn't see
No, they
any
didn't.
of it.
No, they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's gonna be super interesting to see. Like, kind of, I'm excited for the premiere to see like, do they know, right? Like, they have
Right.
to, right? I feel like
I
they
feel like
got.
Bruce, maybe they don't know, but I feel like Bruce probably told them like that, or maybe he decided to not say that information because then he'd be looked at as a threat because he's already played before. But like he only played like I don't even think he lasted like a full day. So yeah, I don't know if I don't think they know, but maybe Bruce will tell them.
I will put money on Jeff making a huge show of it at the
I
opening
agree.
mat. That's like classic Jeff being like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, you wanted it so bad, like welcome back."
Here's the
Like
target.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm very intrigued to see how those first couple. Well, we'll see how far he gets, but at least that first, episode goes for Bruce and how people are going to perceive him playing a first time.
and
Especially with he's the only one. He's the only one. It's not like they have like two captains or something. Like, he's the only one.
I feel like Bruce will either do kind of well or at least be loved by the people on his cast because at the watch party that I was at when they showed the preview of and then showed Bruce saying "Let's go," all of the Survivor 45 cast that was there was like Bruce, Bruce. So it seemed like they all loved Bruce. I don't know if it was just because he got a second chance to play or because he ends up doing well in the season. I hope it's because he does well in the season. But it was really great. I have a video, but I got to watch all of the Survivor 45 contestants, and there were a decent amount of them, probably half the cast was there at the watch party, and they like stood up on a platform while they watched themselves. And I got a video of all of them seeing them on TV for the very first time, and they were all super excited. They were like jumping all over each other, huge smiles. It was great. I can only imagine seeing myself on TV for the first time. That must have been so exciting for them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a moment for sure. Steven and we last podcast we did, I think we manifested something, Steven.
Yeah,
Let's
we
talk
had
about the end of this little preview for 45. What did we manifest?
So we were talking about how we would absolutely love if Survivor came back with the Survivor auction. And in the very end of the preview, we see a gavel hit a table. Jeff Probst better not be misleading us, but I think we are going to see the Survivor auction again. And I'm so hyped to
I
see
love
it.
the Survivor auction, man. They got to bring it back. I know Jeff's going to try. My fear is that he brings it back and tries to do too much with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, just if it ain't broke, like, don't try and fix it. Like, just bring back the auction. If I would have any suggestions for the auction, it's just like no advantages because we know that
No immunity. No immunity.
yeah,
And
like
then no
just
advantages or to put advantages hidden, like how they usually like leave the top on. Like if you're gonna do an advantage, at least do that so they don't know if it's food or an advantage and they still bid on it. But like either way, like they just shouldn't do advantages at the end so that people are saving up their money. It's fun to see them actually bid, not expecting them to wait for something in the future. Like if they like something, they bid on it. It's a lot of fun. I hope to see a lot of fun rewards that you can bid on. Like if they can bring back like the shower, like if we saw it's 43 Gabler showering, that would have been hilarious. Um, bring back the everyone diving into this gigantic chocolate cake, like stuff like that. That's a lot of fun.
yeah. I think we're all in agreement that the auction needs to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I really hope that was not like a fake tease. Like I really hope that the Survivor auction's coming back.
No, I agree. But yeah, so we get to see our first look at 45. I'm super excited. Steven and I and some other guests will definitely be back to deep dive and take a first look at Survivor 45. We want to thank everybody who stuck around and has listened to the podcast with us. Before I let you guys go, Jay West, you got anything that you need to share? Anything that you want to let anyone know what you're doing? Anything like that? Or are you done? You good?
Nah, man. My name Wes. I ain't in this mess. I'm just here, man. Here for a good time.
That's right. Well, we appreciate you joining us for
Thanks for having me, bro. It means a lot.
absolutely. Govind, how about you? Any games you're running, anything like that anytime soon? What are you up to?
Yeah, for sure. If you have made it 3 hours, 4 hours, 24 hours into this podcast, like you're clearly a big Survivor fan. So what I would shout out is back in college, I used to run a college Survivor. Hosted the first 3 seasons, possibly did more in the future. But season 1 and 2 are on YouTube, but season 3 is soon to drop. So highly would recommend checking out Scotty Survivor on YouTube. So that's SCOTTY Survivor. And I would recommend season 2, specifically Lost in Time. And if you enjoy it, hop in the Discord. There's a big Call It Survivor Discord with a lot of talk about Maryland, Michigan, all the main ones. And Scotty's getting a lot of traction too. So very thankful for that.
Very cool. Govind, we thank you for sticking it out and hanging out and talking Survivor with us. We're very excited that you wanted a podcast with us. So we'll definitely have both of you guys back for sure. It was definitely a fun time.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Steven,
Of
close
course.
this
Thank
out,
you guys for the
brother.
opportunity.
Yeah, so I also want to plug my Survivor game. I host Steven Survivor, which is an ORG, an online reality game that is played one day over the weekend on Zoom for about 7 hours or so. You go into Zoom breakout rooms, make alliances, you play online immunity challenges, you vote people out, and we have a winner. So if you want to play Survivor from your house, and you only have one day that you're free and you're able to play, please contact me at Steven Lupo 9 on Instagram, STEVEN LUPO 9 on Instagram. Let me know you're interested, and hopefully you'll be free the day we do it, and you'll be able to apply and play. Also, I wanted to, before we close out for good the season, I wanted to bring up the fact that we are about to go into season 45 with hour-and-a-half long episodes instead of an hour. Well, what do you guys think about that? Do you like it? Are you excited to see more Survivor on your screens each week? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, the more Survivor, the better. Bring
Yeah.
it. Yeah, just bring it, man. Like the more time I get to hang out with Jeff and Survivor, I'm gonna take it. So yeah, give it to me. It's the only show I watch.
Yeah, I feel like what's missing a lot in less so this season, but honestly a lot in the new era, is they're showing more about people's story and also less strategy talk, and less social life than we probably would like to see. A lot of times we go into tribal and see what happens at tribal and we're confused why certain things happened. And I think this will give them the platform to be able to show more of the strategy, more of the social relationships. Apparently, from exit interviews, Jamie and Jam Jam were like crazy close, and I had no clue until I watched the exit interview. So like stuff like that, I want to know everybody who's close with everyone. I want to know more strategy before tribal council votes. And I think we'll be able to get that with this hour and a half. So I'm really excited that they decided to make it longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
What
So
do
we're
you-
gonna get hour-and-a-half episodes for Survivor 45. Tribal Lines just wants to thank you guys again for listening. We want to remind you to like, subscribe, all that jazz. Full tilt boogie with us all the way into Survivor 45. It's gonna be a movie. It's gonna be a banger, as Matt would say, and we're gonna keep doing it. So we appreciate everyone listening, and have a great rest of your night.
Peace.